In a world where strength decides everything, one name strikes terror into heroes and villains alike. They call him the dragon who bows to no one, the creature who reshapes destiny with his bare hands. This isn't the story of a weak boy who dreamed of being a hero. This is the tale of Izuku Midoriya, the one born to dominate, born to conquer, born to stand above all others. Power isn't given, it's taken. And today you'll witness what happens when absolute strength meets an unbreakable will. Prepare yourself for the legend of the strongest creature.
Welcome, Legends, to Chronos Recom. I wrote this story myself, so if you have any suggestions or what-ifs you want to see, drop it in the comments below. Also, just wanted to let you know I've got a Patreon set up now for anyone who wants to support the channel directly. You can get early access to stories, submit direct fan requests, and get exclusive content. It's totally optional, but if you want to help keep these stories coming, check it out. Links in the description. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit that bell so you never miss an upload. Let's dive into this story.
The world of quirks created heroes and villains, legends, and nightmares. But what happens when a force of nature is born? Not just a hero, not just a villain, something beyond both. This is the story of Izuku Midoriya, born with the power of the strongest creature. Izuku Midoriya screamed as contractions racked her body. The hospital room's lights flickered as another power surge hit the building. "Push, Mrs. Midoriya," the doctor urged. Hisashi Midoriya gripped his wife's hand. Unlike most fathers, he wasn't just nervous, he was terrified. His family lineage, distant as it was from his famous hero cousin Ryuko Tatsuma, carried dragon blood. His own fire-breathing quirk was merely a diluted manifestation. The room temperature plummeted suddenly, then skyrocketed. Medical equipment exploded. The doctor stumbled back as Inko gave one final push. The silence that followed was broken by a cry. Not the wail of a newborn, but a roar that shook the foundations of the hospital. What is that?" a nurse whispered, staring at the infant. Small horns protruded from the child's green hair. His skin, unnaturally tough, shimmered with faint scales, and his eyes, piercing, golden, predatory. "He's beautiful," Inko whispered, exhausted but smiling. Hisashi approached cautiously, recognition dawning on his face. "The legends in my family about the dragon emperor of old." The baby looked at his father and, impossibly, grinned. By age 4, Izuku Midoriya was already feared. The pediatrician who declared him quirkless at the standard checkup found himself thrown through a wall when Izuku, frustrated at being poked and prodded, transformed his arm into dragon scales and claws. "Not quirkless," the doctor had mumbled through broken teeth. "Definitely not quirkless." At home, Izuku's parents adjusted to raising a child who could breathe fire that melted steel, who sometimes sleepwalked in partial dragon form, who broke furniture by simply sitting too heavily. "Izuku, honey," Inko said one morning, finding her son in the backyard, a small crater formed where he'd been playing. "Remember what we talked about?" Gentle touch. The massive boy, already the size of an 8-year-old despite being half that age, looked up at his mother and nodded seriously. "Sorry, Mom, I was practicing." Beside him lay a crushed boulder. Not broken, crushed into powder. "Practicing what, sweetie?" "Thunder Bagua," he said, hefting an improvised club made from a small tree trunk. "It's not strong enough yet." Inko swallowed hard. This wasn't the first time Izuku had named techniques he'd never been taught, using words from languages he'd never learned. Kindergarten lasted exactly 3 days. On day 1, a teacher scolded Izuku for breaking a table. On day 2, a child tried to bully him for his horns. On day 3, Katsuki Bakugo made the mistake that would define their relationship forever. "Deku," the explosive boy had sneered, using the derogatory play on Izuku's name. "What kind of stupid quirk gives you horns? You look like a freak." The classroom fell silent. Even at 5 years old, the other children sensed danger. Izuku turned slowly, golden eyes narrowing. "What did you call me?" Bakugo, confident in his explosive quirk and unaware of the precipice he stood upon, smirked and repeated, "Deku, useless freak." The temperature in the room dropped. Then, with speed impossible for his size, Izuku moved. Thunder Bagua. His makeshift club, brought from home, connected with Bakugo's chest. The explosive boy flew across the room, through a wall, and into the playground outside. When teachers rushed to the scene, they found Bakugo gasping for breath, ribs cracked, and Izuku standing over him. "My name," the horned boy said calmly, "is Izuku Midoriya. Call me Midoriya or don't call me at all." He turned to the gathering crowd, eyes flashing. "That goes for all of you, understand?" No one disagreed. After the kindergarten incident, the Midoriyas homeschooled Izuku until arrangements could be made with Aldera Junior High for special accommodations. By then, Izuku had grown into his power and his personality. At 12, he stood 6 feet tall, his body rippling with muscle, horns now prominent on his head. He carried his kanabo, a proper one now, forged specially by support companies, everywhere he went. His reputation preceded him, and the school hallways parted like the sea when he walked through. Bakugo, who had nursed his hatred for years, kept his distance. One confrontation in middle school had been enough to cement the hierarchy. Izuku had merely laughed at Bakugo's explosions, walking through them as if they were gentle rain. "Weaklings can't choose how they die," Izuku had told him, quoting words that came to him in dreams of oceans and sky islands. The teachers were equally intimidated. When Izuku turned in assignments, they praised them regardless of quality. When he skipped class to train on the roof, they marked him present. The only ones who showed no fear were his parents, whom he treated with unusual gentleness and respect. And his cousin, Ryuko Tatsuma, pro-hero Ryukyu, who occasionally visited to help him understand his powers. "Your transformation is different from mine," she observed during one training session. "More powerful, more primal." Izuku, in his hybrid form, 8 feet tall, scaled, with a dragon snout and tail, nodded. "I am not just a dragon, I am the dragon." He demonstrated by creating flame clouds that he could stand on, controlling weather, generating tornadoes with a swing of his kanabo. "Kaifu!" he shouted, sending wind blades that sliced through steel targets. Ryuko watched with a mixture of awe and concern. "Izuku, where did you learn these techniques? Who taught you these names?" The boy shrugged his massive shoulders. "No one. I've always known them. They come to me in dreams of another life, another world." His golden eyes gleamed. "A world where I was the strongest creature." At 14, Izuku made his decision official. "I'm going to UA," he announced at dinner. His parents exchanged glances. "Are you sure that's what you want?" Inko asked carefully. "There are other hero schools that might be more accommodating." Izuku's laugh boomed through the house. "Accommodating? I don't need accommodation. I need worthy opponents." He bit through a steel fork accidentally, chewing the metal like it was nothing. "Besides, All Might teaches there now. I want to see how the symbol of peace measures up." "Izuku," his father said firmly. "Being a hero isn't about measuring strength or finding opponents. It's about saving people." The boy considered this, then nodded. "The strong protect what's theirs. I understand protection." He looked at his parents with unexpected softness. "You two are worth protecting. Maybe I'll find others." It wasn't exactly the hero mentality they'd hoped for, but it was something. The day before the UA entrance exam, Izuku encountered a slime villain in a tunnel. Before the creature could even speak, Izuku's arm transformed, scales gleaming. "Worthless," he muttered, swinging his kanabo. "Raime Hake!" The resulting impact didn't just defeat the slime villain, it vaporized it, leaving nothing but a steaming puddle. When All Might arrived seconds later, having chased the villain, he found only Izuku standing over the remains. "Young man, did you see a villain pass through here?" the symbol of peace asked, still in his muscled form. Izuku pointed at the puddle with his club. "That was it. Weak." All Might's permanent smile faltered slightly as he assessed the massive, horned teenager and the devastation around him. "You defeated it alone? Is that surprising?" Izuku tilted his head, studying the #1 hero with curious intensity. "You're strong. I can smell it." He hefted his kanabo. "Fight me." All Might blinked in surprise, then laughed heartily. "I don't fight children, young man, but your spirit is admirable. Are you planning to become a hero?" "I'm taking the UA exam tomorrow," Izuku stated. "I'll show everyone what true strength looks like." All Might's laughter faded as he looked more closely at the boy. Something about those golden eyes, that confident stance, triggered a primal warning in his mind. "Well then," he said carefully, "I look forward to seeing what you can do." As the hero bounded away, Izuku smiled. Not his usual predatory grin, but something almost excited. Finally, he murmured, someone worth fighting. The day of the UA entrance exam dawned with ominous weather. Storm clouds gathered, unusual for the season. Meteorologists were baffled by the sudden pressure system. Only Izuku Midoriya understood, watching her son prepare for the exam. Izuku, she said gently, are you causing the storm? The massive teenager glanced out the window, then shrugged. My power responds to my mood. He strapped his kanabo to his back. I'm excited. At the exam site, participants gave Izuku a wide berth. His imposing figure, now standing 6'5" with his horns adding another few inches, drew stares and whispers. Is that even a kid? Look at those horns. Is that a weapon? Are we allowed weapons? Bakugo arrived, saw Izuku, and immediately moved to the opposite side of the gathering area. Their middle school confrontation had left him with 3 broken ribs and a healthy sense of self-preservation. Present Mike's explanation of the exam echoed through the auditorium, detailing the robot opponents and point system. Izuku listened with only mild interest, his focus more on gauging the other participants. A tall boy with glasses interrupted with questions about a misprint. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Oi, he called out, his deep voice silencing the room. Stop wasting time with stupid questions. If you're that worried about rules, you're already weak. The bespectacled boy turned, affronted. Excuse me? Following rules is the foundation of heroism. And what is that weapon? Bringing outside support items is clearly against regulations. Izuku laughed, the sound reverberating through the hall. This, he patted, this is part of me. Like your engines are part of you, Four Eyes. Four Eyes. How did you? I can smell it. The oil in your calves. Izuku grinned, showing teeth slightly too sharp to be human. I know everyone's quirk here, just by scent. Present Mike, sensing tension, quickly intervened. All right, let's stay plus ultra positive. As for the weapon question, applicants with mutation quirks that require specific equipment are permitted such items after review. The horned gentleman's application was approved. The glasses-wearing boy, Tenya Ida, Izuku's nose told him, sat down stiffly, but not before shooting Izuku a disapproving glare. When they were assigned testing areas, Izuku found himself in ground beta. He stood at the gates, ignoring the nervous chatter of others around him. Begin! Present Mike suddenly shouted, and the gates opened. While others hesitated in confusion, Izuku was already moving. Not running, walking confidently into the foe city. The first robot he encountered, a 3-pointer, charged at him. Izuku didn't even draw his kanabo. He simply caught the machine with one hand, his arm partially transforming with blue scales. Pathetic, he muttered, crushing the robot like aluminum foil. As more robots converged, Izuku finally unstrapped his kanabo. Let's make this interesting. Raime Hake. The kanabo, swung with inhuman force, created a shockwave that destroyed not just one robot, but an entire street of them. The other examinees stopped to stare in shock. Izuku continued his casual stroll through the test area, destroying robots with minimal effort. Some he crushed with his bare hands. Others he melted with his Bolo Breath, a stream of blue fire that turned metal to liquid. For larger groups, he used Kaifu, sending wind sides that sliced through their armor. The point tally in his head grew. 45, 63, 78. But it wasn't enough. This wasn't a test. This was barely a warm-up. Is this all UA has to offer? He shouted, looking up at the observation cameras. Send me something worthy. As if answering his challenge, the ground trembled. Buildings cracked as the 0-pointer emerged, a massive robot the size of a skyscraper. Other examinees fled in terror. Izuku smiled. Finally. Rather than running away, he ran toward the mechanical monster. As he moved, his body changed. Blue scales erupted across his skin, his muscles bulged, ripping through his uniform, his face elongated into a draconic snout, and massive wings burst from his back. The hybrid form of Izuku Midoriya, half man and half dragon, launched into the air. Hovering before the 0-pointer, he raised his kanabo. Tatsumaki! With a swing of his weapon, he created a tornado that engulfed the robot, tearing off chunks of its armor. But Izuku wasn't finished. He inhaled deeply, his chest glowing blue with heat. Bolo Breath! A stream of blue fire, hot enough to melt steel, erupted from his mouth. It struck the 0-pointer's exposed core, melting through it like butter. The machine groaned, systems failing, and began to topple. In the observation room, the UA teachers watched in stunned silence. That kid just, Snipe began, destroyed the zero-pointer single-handedly. Midnight finished. Principal Nezu leaned forward, eyes narrowed in calculation. More importantly, he did it without hesitation or fear. Look at his face. On screen, Izuku's draconic features were split in a wide grin. Not the smile of someone who had passed a test, but the satisfaction of a predator who had made a kill. He's enjoying it, All Might observed quietly. Back on the testing ground, Izuku wasn't done. As the zero-pointer fell, it threatened to crush several examinees who hadn't fled far enough. Without thinking, he flew beneath the machine's massive body. Kaido! Reimei! His kanabo, charged with what appeared to be electrical energy, smashed into the robot from below. The impact changed its falling trajectory, directing it away from the other students and into an empty area. When the dust settled, Izuku stood amid the wreckage, still in his hybrid form. The other examinees stared in a mixture of awe and terror. "Time's up," President Mike's voice announced. Izuku slowly reverted to his human form, though human was a generous term for his horned, muscular appearance. He shouldered his kanabo and walked toward the exit, the crowd of students parting before him. As he passed Ida, the engine-legged boy spoke up. You diverted that robot. You saved people." Izuku paused, considering this. The strong protect what's valuable. Those who can't protect themselves need a strong leader. He continued walking. Remember that, Four Eyes. In the days that followed, rumors spread about the Dragon of UA, the applicant who had destroyed the zero-pointer and racked up more villain points than anyone in UA history. When the acceptance letter came, holographically delivered by All Might himself, there was no surprise in the Midoriya household. "Young Midoriya," All Might's projection announced. "You've been accepted to UA with the highest villain point score ever recorded, 145 points. All Might's permanent smile seemed slightly strained as he continued. "However, I must note that the hero course is about more than combat. While you receive no rescue points for your actions, the redirection of the zero-pointer was noted. We look forward to helping you develop a more complete understanding of heroism." As the message ended, Izuku simply nodded. "They want to tame me," he said to his parents. "Make me a proper hero." Hisashi placed a hand on his son's massive shoulder. "Is that so bad? There's more to being strong than just physical power." Izuku considered this, then shrugged. "We'll see what they have to teach me. If they're worthy, I'll listen." UA High School's imposing gates seemed almost small compared to Izuku as he approached on his first day. His new uniform had been custom-made to accommodate his size, and his kanabo hung from a special harness on his back. Students whispered as he passed, "That's him, the one who destroyed the zero-pointer. I heard he can turn into a dragon. My cousin was at the exam, said he created a tornado with just his club." Izuku ignored them all, his golden eyes focused on navigating to Class 1A. When he arrived, he found Ida already there, directing others to their seats with robotic gestures. "Ah, Midoriya!" Ida approached, hand extended stiffly. "I owe you an apology for my presumptions during the exam. Your actions against the zero-pointer revealed your true heroic nature." Izuku looked at the outstretched hand, then at Ida's earnest face. After a moment's consideration, he took the hand in his much larger one, careful not to crush it. "You talk too much, Four Eyes, but you're straightforward. I respect that." He moved to his assigned seat, which had been reinforced to hold his weight. As other students filtered in, he assessed them with predatory interest. A round-faced girl who manipulated gravity, a boy who created ice and fire, another who could harden his body. Potential rivals, perhaps, or at least not complete weaklings. Then Bakugo entered, freezing momentarily when he spotted Izuku. Their eyes locked, years of enmity condensed into a single glance. "Bakugo," Izuku acknowledged with a slight nod. The explosive boy scowled but wisely said nothing, taking a seat as far from Izuku as possible. Their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, entered last. The scruffy man surveyed the class, his gaze lingering on Izuku. "Midoriya," he said flatly, "leave the weapon outside during regular classes." Izuku narrowed his eyes. "It's part of my quirk application." "Not in my classroom, it isn't. Outside. Now." The air grew heavy as students held their breath, sensing conflict. Izuku rose to his full height, towering over Aizawa. For a long moment, tension crackled between them. Then, surprisingly, Izuku chuckled. "You're not afraid," he observed, removing his kanabo and placing it by the door. "Interesting." Aizawa's expression didn't change. "Take your seat. We're wasting time." The quirk assessment test that followed proved eye-opening for everyone. While Izuku dominated most physical events, throwing the ball literally out of tracking range, completing the 100-meter dash in 1.8 seconds, others showed impressive abilities as well. Shoto Todoroki created impressive ice structures with minimal effort. Bakugo's explosions gave him surprising mobility. Even the gravity girl, Uraraka, demonstrated tactical intelligence with her quirk. During the ball throw, when Bakugo launched his with an explosion and shouted, "Die!" at the ball, Izuku found himself laughing. "Still trying to act tough, Bakugo?" he called out. "Let me show you what power really looks like." When Izuku's turn came, he didn't just throw the ball, he transformed his arm into its dragon form and launched the ball with a technique. Thunder Bagua. The ball broke the sound barrier instantly, creating a sonic boom that knocked several students off their feet. It disappeared into the sky, the measuring device losing track at over 10 kilometers. Infinity, Aizawa announced dryly, showing the symbol on his device. Technically a new record, though useless data for assessment purposes. As the test continued, Izuku found himself watching his classmates with growing interest. Not all were weaklings. Some had potential. And that made UA far more intriguing than he'd anticipated. Battle training came next, with All Might leading the class in hero costumes. Izuku's was minimalist, scaled armor that accommodated his transformations, and a specially designed holder for his kanabo. Young Midoriya, All Might addressed him before announcing teams. "Remember that this exercise is about capture, not destruction." Izuku grinned, showing slightly pointed teeth. "I'll try not to break anyone permanently." He was paired with Uraraka against Ida and Bakugo, with Izuku's team playing heroes attempting to secure a mock weapon. As they prepared, Uraraka approached him nervously. Midoriya, do you have a plan?" He considered the small, round-faced girl. She'd shown courage approaching him when others kept their distance. "You can make things float," he stated, "including yourself." She nodded quickly. "Good. Stay behind me until we reach the weapon room. I'll handle Bakugo. You deal with Four Eyes and the weapon. But shouldn't we be more strategic? Bakugo seems really angry, especially at you." Izuku laughed, the sound echoing in the preparation room. "Bakugo has been angry at me since we were 5. It hasn't helped him yet." When the exercise began, they entered the building cautiously, or rather, Uraraka was cautious. Izuku simply walked forward, kanabo resting on his shoulder. "Deku!" Bakugo's voice echoed down the hallway as he launched himself around a corner, palms sparking with explosive sweat. Izuku sighed. "You never learn." He turned to Uraraka. "Go, find the weapon. I'll deal with this." As Uraraka hurried away, Bakugo unleashed a massive explosion directly at Izuku. When the smoke cleared, Izuku stood unharmed, his skin partially transformed with blue scales. "Is that all?" he asked, sounding genuinely disappointed. "After all these years, that's still all you have?" Bakugo's face contorted with rage. "I've been training every day to surpass you. Don't you dare look down on me." He launched another attack, this time combining explosions to create a more focused blast. Izuku raised his kanabo. "Kaifu!" The wind's scythes cut through Bakugo's explosion, dispersing it and continuing toward the blonde boy, who barely dodged in time. "You've improved your reflexes," Izuku noted, "but you're still too slow." With frightening speed, he closed the distance between them. Bakugo tried to retreat, to create space for his explosions, but Izuku was suddenly behind him. Thunder Bagua. The kanabo struck Bakugo with carefully controlled force, enough to send him crashing into a wall, but not enough to kill him. The explosive boy slumped to the ground, dazed but conscious. Izuku approached, crouching beside his fallen childhood acquaintance. "Know what your problem is, Bakugo? You think anger makes you strong." He tapped Bakugo's chest with one finger. "Strength isn't about emotion. It's about dominance. You can't beat me because you've never accepted that I'm simply superior." In the monitoring room, All Might and the other students watched in silence. "Should we stop this?" Kirishima asked. That seemed excessive. All Might's permanent smile was strained. "Young Midoriya is showing restraint, believe it or not. His quirk assessment readings suggest he could have done far worse." Meanwhile, Uraraka had reached the weapon room, where Ida was guarding the fake missile with exaggerated villain behavior. "Halt, hero!" he proclaimed, chopping his hands robotically. "You shall never claim this weapon of mass destruction." Uraraka tried to float past him, but Ida's engines gave him the speed advantage in the open room. She was at a stalemate until the floor suddenly trembled. The wall exploded inward as Izuku entered, dragging a semi-conscious Bakugo by the collar. "Four Eyes," he acknowledged Ida. "Your partner is defeated." Ida took a defensive stance before the weapon. "That changes nothing. As a villain, I must protect this weapon with my life." Izuku dropped Bakugo unceremoniously and grinned. "I respect your determination, but this exercise is over." He inhaled deeply, his chest glowing blue. Uraraka's eyes widened in recognition. "Midoriya, wait, you'll destroy everything." But instead of his full Bolo Breath, Izuku released a concentrated stream of fire at the ceiling. The heat triggered the sprinkler system, soaking the room. "Uraraka," Izuku said calmly, "now." Understanding dawned on her face. With the floor wet, Ida's engines would have less traction. She touched her fingertips together, activating her quirk on herself, and launched toward the weapon. Ida tried to intercept, but as predicted, his engines caused him to slip on the wet floor. Uraraka reached the weapon and wrapped her arms around it. "Hero Team wins." All Might's voice announced over the speakers. In the monitoring room, the class erupted in discussion. "Did you see how he controlled that fire breath? He was holding back the whole time against Bakugo, but he actually worked with Uraraka at the end." All Might studied the monitors thoughtfully. Perhaps there was hope for young Midoriya after all. Back in the exercise building, Ida approached Izuku with a stiff bow. "Your strategy was sound. I acknowledge my defeat." Izuku nodded. "You fought well with limited power. That's worthy of respect." As medical robots came to collect Bago, Izuku turned to Uraraka. "You did your part. Quick thinking." The gravity manipulator beamed at what, from Izuku, constituted high praise. "We made a good team. Maybe we could work together again sometime?" Izuku considered this, then shrugged his massive shoulders. "Perhaps. You're not completely useless." Coming from him, it was practically a declaration of friendship. The USJ incident changed everything. When the League of Villains attacked during rescue training, most students panicked. Izuku smiled. "Finally," he muttered as the black mist villain, Kurogiri, scattered the students throughout the facility. "A real fight." Izuku found himself teleported to the conflagration zone along with Ojiro. Fire raged around them as villains closed in. "Midoriya," Ojiro called out, taking a martial arts stance. "We need to work together." Izuku assessed the approaching villains, at least 20 of them armed with various weapons and quirks. Nothing impressive. "No," he stated simply. "We don't." Before Ojiro could protest, Izuku transformed partially, his arms becoming draconic, his back sprouting small wings. He unsheathed his kanabo and faced the villains. "You chose the wrong students to attack," he growled, voice deeper in his partial transformation. A fire-manipulating villain laughed. "Look at this kid playing dragon. Let's show him what real fire is." The villain unleashed a torrent of flames directly at Izuku, who didn't move. The fire enveloped him completely. "Midoriya," Ojiro shouted in alarm. When the flames died down, Izuku stood unharmed, looking almost bored. "Is that all? Pathetic." He inhaled deeply. "Bolo Breath." The blue fire that erupted from his mouth dwarfed the villain's attack in both size and heat. It swept through the enemy ranks, not burning them directly. Izuku had enough control to avoid killing, but igniting everything around them, creating a circle of blue fire that trapped the villains. "What the hell is this kid?" one villain gasped. Izuku approached slowly, kanabo dragging along the ground, creating sparks. "I am the strongest creature," he stated matter-of-factly, "and you are in my territory now." What followed wasn't a battle, but a demonstration. Izuku moved through the villain group like a force of nature. Some he knocked unconscious with carefully measured blows. Others he intimidated into surrender simply by transforming further and roaring in their faces. Within minutes, all 20 villains were either unconscious or restrained by Ojiro, who had picked off those trying to flee Izuku's onslaught. "We should find the others," Ojiro suggested, eyeing Izuku with new respect. Izuku nodded, looking toward the central plaza where he could hear the sounds of a larger battle. "The real fight is there." They arrived to find a horrific scene. Aizawa was pinned beneath a monstrous creature with an exposed brain, the Nomu. All Might had not yet arrived, and the hand-covered villain, Shigaraki, was gloating. Other students had gathered. Todoroki had frozen numerous villains, Bakugo and Kirishima were engaged with lesser opponents, and 13 was injured. Izuku assessed the situation with a predator's clarity. The brain creature was the primary threat. Its strength and speed were evident from what it had done to Aizawa. "Interesting," he murmured, drawing the attention of Shigaraki. "Oh, another student joins the party?" The villain's scratching voice carried across the plaza. "Nomu, kill him too!" The monstrous Nomu released Aizawa and charged at Izuku with blinding speed. Students cried out in warning, but Izuku stood his ground. As the Nomu reached him, fist cocked back for a devastating blow, Izuku grinned. "Thunder Bagua!" His kanabo, swung with the full force of his immense strength, collided with the Nomu's head. The impact created a shockwave that cracked the concrete beneath them. The Nomu's charge halted as its head snapped to the side at an unnatural angle. But to everyone's shock, it straightened its neck and continued its attack. "Shock absorption and regeneration," Shigaraki called out gleefully. "Nomu was designed to kill All Might himself. What can a student possibly—" He cut off as Izuku began to transform. Not partially this time, fully. Blue scales erupted across his body. His size increased dramatically, clothes tearing away except for his specially designed pants. His face elongated into a dragon's snout, horns growing larger. Wings spread from his back and his tail lashed out, cracking the ground where it struck. The hybrid form of Izuku Midoriya, half man and half dragon, stood before the Nomu. "Shock absorption has limits," he growled, voice inhuman. "Let's find yours." What followed was a clash of monsters. The Nomu's strength and speed were matched by Izuku's draconic power. Each blow created shockwaves that forced others to retreat for safety. "Raime Hake!" The electrified Kanabo strike hit the Nomu's chest, sending it flying into a wall. Before it could recover, Izuku was there, grabbing it by the arm. "Kaido Senpu!" He spun the creature overhead and slammed it into the ground with such force that the floor of the USJ cracked in a spiderweb pattern extending dozens of meters. Still, the Nomu rose, damaged but regenerating. Shigaraki scratched his neck frantically. "What is this? What is this student?" Izuku inhaled deeply, blue light glowing in his chest and throat. "Bolo Breath!" The concentrated flame struck the Nomu directly, so hot that the creature's skin began to bubble and melt faster than it could regenerate. Still, it pushed forward through the flame, reaching for Izuku. In that moment, the USJ doors burst open and All Might arrived with his trademark declaration, "I am here!" The symbol of peace took in the scene. Izuku in dragon form battling the Nomu, other students securing injured teachers, villains either frozen, restrained, or unconscious. "Young Midoriya," he called out. "Stand down! I'll handle this." Izuku glanced at All Might, then back at the Nomu, which was still advancing despite its injuries. He made a split-second decision. "No," he replied simply, and launched into his final attack. Leaping into the air, he created flame clouds beneath his feet that allowed him to hover. Lightning began to crackle around his kanabo as he raised it high. Raimehake! The lightning-charged kanabo struck the Nomu with such force that the ground beneath it cratered. The creature's shock absorption finally failed under the overwhelming power, and its body crumpled. As Izuku landed beside the defeated Nomu, he turned to Shigaraki and Kurogiri, who were backing away in shock. "You're next," he stated, taking a step toward them. Before he could advance further, a warp gate opened behind the villains. "Shigaraki Tamura, we must retreat," Kurogiri urged. "This situation has become untenable." The hand-covered villain glared at Izuku with hatred. "What are you? Some secret weapon? All Might's trump card." Izuku's draconic face split in a terrifying grin. "I am Izuku Midoriya. Remember that name." As the villains escaped through the warp gate, Izuku slowly reverted to his human form, though human remained a relative term given his horns and imposing physique. All Might approached cautiously. "Young Midoriya, while your actions were effective, such violence is necessary," Izuku interrupted. "That creature wouldn't have stopped for words or gentle restraint. It needed to be broken." He looked around at his classmates who were staring at him with expressions ranging from awe to fear. Even Bakugo seemed shaken by the display of raw power. Only Todoroki met his gaze with calculation rather than emotion. The half-cold, half-hot user nodded slightly in acknowledgement of strength. In that moment, something shifted in Class 1A's dynamic. Izuku had always been feared for his size and rumored power. Now, having witnessed what he was truly capable of, his classmates understood exactly what it meant to have the strongest creature among them. And for Izuku, something shifted as well. Looking at Aizawa's broken form being tended by students, at All Might standing protective before the class, he felt an unfamiliar sensation. Not just the thrill of battle or the satisfaction of victory, but something else. A desire to protect. Not just himself or his parents, but these others who, despite their weakness compared to him, had stood their ground against villains. Interesting, he murmured to himself. Very interesting. The sports festival approached, and UA buzzed with anticipation. For most students, it was a chance to be scouted by pro heroes. For Izuku, it was something simpler, a sanctioned battlefield. Midoriya, Todoroki approached him the day before the festival. A word. Izuku looked down at the heterochromatic boy, one of the few classmates he considered worthy of attention. Speak. In terms of raw power, you're the strongest in our class, Todoroki stated bluntly. But tomorrow, I will defeat you. I'll do it without using my left side. Izuku studied him, then laughed. Not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. Half your power and you think you can challenge me? Interesting. He leaned closer. Show me this resolve tomorrow, Todoroki. I'll enjoy breaking it. The first event, an obstacle race, proved barely challenging for Izuku. When Todoroki created an ice wall to block competitors at the start, Izuku simply transformed partially and flew over it. The robot obstacles fell to his Thunder Bagua, the chasm he crossed by creating flame clouds to walk on, and the minefield he ignored entirely, his tough scales impervious to the explosions. He finished first without using even half his strength, Todoroki second, and Bakugo third, both visibly frustrated at being unable to close the gap. The cavalry battle that followed placed a target squarely on Izuku's back as the 10 million point holder. Teams formed specifically to challenge him. I'll work alone, he informed Midnight when she explained the team requirements. That's against the rules, she replied firmly. 4 participants per team. Izuku's eyes narrowed dangerously. For a moment, tension filled the stadium as students and spectators alike held their breath, wondering if the Dragon Boy would defy the rules outright. Then, surprisingly, a voice called out, I'll join Midoriya's team. Heads turned to see Tokoyami stepping forward, dark shadow hovering behind him. As will I, Uraraka added, moving to stand beside the bird-headed student. After a moment's hesitation, Hatsume Mei from the support course joined them, eyes gleaming with opportunity. Those scales, that transformation, I must study your equipment needs. Izuku assessed his unexpected volunteers. Tokoyami's dark shadow had offensive and defensive capabilities. Uraraka could manipulate gravity, and the support student brought gadgets that might prove useful. Fine, he conceded. But I lead, you follow, no questions. When the cavalry battle began, every team targeted Izuku's group, as expected. What they didn't expect was his strategy. Rather than trying to evade or defend the 10 million points, Izuku went on the offensive. His partially transformed state gave him enough strength to carry his entire team while still maintaining mobility. Uraraka, make us lighter, he commanded. Tokoyami, defense. Support girl, whatever you've got that flies. Jetpack boots, Hatsume announced proudly, activating the devices on Izuku's feet. With reduced weight and added propulsion, Izuku's team became airborne. From this vantage, they swooped down on other teams, snatching headbands with precision strikes. Kaifu! Izuku sent wind scythes to distract Todoroki's team while Dark Shadow grabbed their headband. By the time the event ended, Izuku's team had accumulated more points than any team in festival history. Not just retaining their 10 million, but adding several million more. The tournament portion began after lunch. Izuku found himself approached by All Might in a private hallway. Young Midoriya, the symbol of peace, began, "You've shown impressive strength today." Izuku waited, sensing there was more. But a true hero's strength lies not just in power, but in how that power is used. All Might's permanent smile seemed somehow serious. In the matches ahead, remember that these are your classmates, not enemies. Izuku considered this. You're worried I'll hurt them. I'm concerned you might not understand the difference between victory and dominance. The distinction struck Izuku as unexpectedly insightful. Interesting, he murmured. I'll consider your words, All Might. His first match pitted him against Shinso from General Studies, whose brainwashing quirk rendered him helpless until Izuku's dragon instincts took over, his partial transformation breaking the mental control. Worthless, Izuku stated, approaching the purple-haired student who backed away in alarm. Rather than attacking, however, Izuku simply picked Shinso up by the collar and carried him out of bounds. Victory without unnecessary harm. All Might, watching from the teacher's box, nodded in approval. Subsequent matches saw Izuku facing Tokoyami, whose dark shadow proved vulnerable to his Bolo Breath, and then Ida, whose speed couldn't match Izuku's predictive instincts and wind attacks. In the semifinals, he finally faced Bakugo. As they stood across from each other in the arena, years of history hung between them. "Midoriya!" Bakugo shouted, palms sparking. "I'm not the same weakling you've pushed around all these years. I'll show you what real determination looks like." Izuku tilted his head. "You still don't understand, Bakugo. This isn't about determination. It's about nature." He unsheathed his kanabo. "But come, show me your growth." When midnight began the match, Bakugo launched forward with his explosion-propelled howitzer impact, his ultimate move. The blast was impressive, far beyond what he'd been capable of even a few months earlier. For the first time in their long history, Izuku actually had to brace himself against the attack. The crowd gasped as smoke enveloped the arena. When it cleared, Izuku stood with his kanabo planted before him, scales partially covering his arms. His uniform was singed, and a thin line of blood trickled from his nose. "Good," he said, genuine appreciation in his voice. "You've improved, Bakugo." The explosive boy's triumphant expression faltered as Izuku wiped away the blood and grinned. "My turn." What followed wasn't the one-sided demolition many expected. Bakugo fought with everything he had, using his explosions for mobility as much as offense, never staying still enough to become an easy target. Izuku, for his part, seemed to be holding back his more devastating techniques. No Bolo Breath that could severely burn. No full Thunder Bagua that might kill. Instead, he matched Bakugo's intensity with controlled power. "Fight me seriously. Damn it!" Bakugo screamed after 5 minutes of combat that had reduced the arena to rubble. "Stop holding back!" Izuku paused, kanabo resting on his shoulder. "You want my full power? You couldn't withstand it." "I don't care." Bakugo's face contorted with rage and something else. Desperation? "I need to know, how far behind am I? What's the gap I need to close?" In that moment, Izuku saw something in his childhood rival he'd never noticed before. Not just anger or pride, but a drive to improve, to overcome, to grow stronger regardless of obstacles. It was, in its way, worthy of respect. "Very well," Izuku said quietly. "I'll show you a fraction of my true strength. Prepare yourself." He planted his feet firmly, kanabo held before him. Lightning began to crackle around the weapon as Izuku's muscles bulged, his transformation advancing but not completing. Thunder, Bagua! The strike never connected physically with Bakugo. It didn't need to. The air pressure alone from the swing created a shockwave that blasted across the arena, catching Bakugo despite his attempt to dodge and sending him crashing into the stadium wall. Silence fell over the crowd as medical robots rushed to the crumpled form of Bakugo, who was unconscious but breathing. Bakugo is unable to continue. Midoriya advances to the finals, Midnight announced. As he walked off the arena, Izuku glanced up at the teacher's box. All Might's expression was unreadable, but he gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Izuku had shown restraint, even in victory. The final match against Todoroki began with the dual quirk user true to his word, fighting using only his right side, creating massive ice formations that would have trapped any normal opponent. Izuku shattered them with casual swings of his kanabo. "Is this all you have, Todoroki?" He called out after breaking through the third ice wall. "Half your power and you thought to challenge me?" Todoroki's face remained impassive as he continued his ice assault, but with each attack, the temperature around him dropped, frost forming on his skin. "Your weakness isn't that you use half your power," Izuku observed, closing the distance between them. "It's that you think power is something to reject." He dodged another ice blast and swung his kanabo in a controlled arc that stopped just short of Todoroki's head. True strength doesn't come from others. Not from your father, not from your mother, not from your DNA. Izuku's golden eyes bored into Todoroki's mismatched ones. It comes from will, from claiming what's yours. Something flickered in Todoroki's expression. You don't understand. I understand power, Izuku interrupted, and you're squandering yours because of pride. He stepped back, lowering his kanabo. Use your flames, Todoroki. Show me your full strength, or forfeit now. In the stands, Endeavor leaned forward, flames intensifying around his face. Yes, use your power, Shoto. Show everyone why you're my masterpiece. Todoroki glanced up at his father, then back at Izuku, who waited patiently, an unprecedented show of restraint from the Dragon Boy. This is your last chance, Izuku warned. Show me something worthy of respect. And finally, something broke in Todoroki's carefully maintained control. Flames erupted from his left side, melting the ice around him, steam billowing across the arena. Thank you, Midoriya, he said quietly, for not holding back. Izuku grinned, raising his kanabo. Now it gets interesting. The battle that followed was spectacular. Todoroki's simultaneous ice and fire attacks created environmental hazards that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Izuku countered with wind scythes and controlled applications of his Bolo Breath. When Todoroki created a massive ice-fire combination attack, Izuku finally transformed fully into his hybrid form, wings spreading wide. Raime Hake! The lightning-charged Kanabo strike collided with Todoroki's ultimate attack, creating an explosion of elemental forces that momentarily blinded the audience. When visibility returned, Todoroki lay at the edge of the arena, conscious but unable to continue fighting. Izuku stood in the center, partially reverted to human form, breathing heavily but victorious. Todoroki is out of bounds. Midoriya wins the sports festival. Midnight announced to thunderous applause. As Izuku accepted the gold medal from All Might, the symbol of peace spoke quietly enough that only he could hear. You showed growth today, young Midoriya, not just in power, but in character. Izuku considered this, then nodded slightly. The truly strong don't need to destroy the weak, only to guide them. All Might's smile became genuinely warm. Perhaps you understand heroism better than I thought. The aftermath of the sports festival brought unexpected developments. Despite his victory and impressive display of power, Izuku received fewer internship offers than Todoroki or even Bakugo. Pro heroes are wary of quirks they can't control, Aizawa explained bluntly when Izuku questioned this. Your power is undeniable. Your temperament remains concerning. One offer, however, stood out, the Dragoon hero, Ryukyu, his cousin. She knows me, Izuku acknowledged, and she understands dragon quirks. The internship began normally enough, with Ryukyu assessing Izuku's combat capabilities in her agency's training facility. Despite being family, she maintained professional distance. Your power exceeds mine, she admitted after their third sparring session, during which Izuku had matched her dragon form with his hybrid state. But your control needs work. Izuku, reverting to human form, raised an eyebrow. I haven't destroyed anything unintentionally. Control isn't just about preventing destruction, Ryukyu countered. It's about precision, efficiency. She approached a computer terminal and brought up footage of their spar. Look here. Your Bolo Breath uses 3 times the energy needed for the same effect. Your transformations waste motion, and your Kanabo strikes, while devastating, leave you open for counterattacks. For perhaps the first time in his life, Izuku found himself receiving criticism he couldn't simply dismiss. Ryukyu wasn't weaker than him, merely different. Her dragon form emphasized agility and precision where his emphasized raw power. Teach me, he said finally, the words unfamiliar on his tongue. Ryukyu smiled, the family resemblance briefly visible in her expression. That's why you're here, cousin. The training that followed was unlike anything Izuku had experienced. Rather than focusing on increasing his already monstrous strength, Ryukyu taught him control, efficiency, and the tactical applications of his abilities. Your flame clouds can be used for more than walking on air, she demonstrated, creating smaller, denser clouds that could be manipulated as platforms or even weapons. And your wind techniques can be focused for precision rather than just destruction. On the 3rd day of his internship, everything changed. A villain attack in downtown Musutafu required Ryukyu's response, and she brought Izuku along as support. Observation only, she instructed as they approached the scene. These are the Scaled Alliance, villains with reptilian quirks who've been targeting dragon-type heroes specifically. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Why target dragon quirks? Ideology. They believe dragon types are superior and should rule, like not serve as heroes. Ryukyu's expression darkened. Their leader, Worm, has been hunting my sidekicks for months. As they arrived at the chaos, a shopping district partially destroyed by what appeared to be acid attacks, Izuku sensed something wrong. The scent in the air, the pattern of destruction. It's a trap, he realized suddenly. They're not after civilians. They're after you. Before Ryukyu could respond, the ground beneath them exploded. From the smoke emerged a massive figure, a man with armored scales covering his body, a long tail whipping behind him, and acid dripping from elongated jaws. Ryukyu, the creature hissed. And a student? How disappointing. I expected your full agency. Ryukyu immediately transformed into her dragon form, placing herself between Izuku and the villain. Worm, surrender now. You're outnumbered. The villain laughed, a grating sound like stones grinding together. Am I? Check again. Hero. From surrounding buildings, more scaled villains emerged, at least 20 of them, each with unique reptilian features. Some spat acid, others displayed armored hides or venomous fangs. My scaled alliance has a proposition for you, Ryukyu, Worm continued. Join us. Dragon types should rule, not serve. These humans use us as their protectors while fearing our power. It's time we claimed our rightful place. Ryukyu's dragon form growled. Never. Dragons protect their territory and those within it. That's what being a hero means to me. Worm sighed dramatically. I thought you might say that. Very well. He snapped his clawed fingers. Kill her. The student too. As the villains attacked from all sides, Ryukyu shouted to Izuku, Run! Get back up! But Izuku wasn't running. Something was stirring within him, not just the thrill of battle that always came with conflict, but something deeper, ancestral. These villains threatened his family, his kind. Territory, he murmured, the word resonating with something primal in his dragon blood. They threaten what's mine. His transformation wasn't gradual this time. It exploded outward, blue scales erupting across his body, wings tearing through his costume, horns elongating to their full, impressive length. But he didn't stop at the hybrid form. For the first time outside of dreams, Izuku felt his body continuing to change, growing, expanding, his consciousness remaining, but his form becoming something else entirely, a true dragon. Where Izuku had stood now towered an enormous Azure Dragon, serpentine and majestic, with massive horns and glowing golden eyes. Clouds formed around his undulating body, and lightning crackled between his scales. The Scaled Alliance members froze in shock. Even Worm stepped back, acid drool momentarily halted. What is this? The villain leader gasped. This is no student. Ryukyu, herself in dragon form, stared in amazement. Izuku? The Azure Dragon that was Izuku Midoriya opened its massive jaws, and when he spoke, his voice boomed like thunder. I am the strongest creature, he declared, and you threaten what's mine. What followed wasn't a battle, but a reckoning. Izuku's full dragon form possessed power beyond anything he'd demonstrated before. His Bolo Breath, now a concentrated beam of blue destruction, carved trenches in the street. His movements generated windstorms that sent lesser villains flying. Worm, realizing the tide had turned catastrophically, attempted to flee. Izuku's serpentine body moved with surprising speed, coiling around buildings to cut off the villain's escape. Running, Worm? Izuku's draconic voice rumbled. I thought dragons were supposed to rule, not cower. The villain leader, cornered and desperate, unleashed his full acid attack directly at Izuku's face. The caustic liquid splashed against azure scales and did nothing. Pathetic, Izuku growled, raising a massive claw. You're not worthy of dragon blood. Before he could strike, Ryukyu's smaller dragon form interposed itself between them. Izuku, stop! We're heroes! We capture, not kill! The massive Azure Dragon paused, golden eyes narrowing. For a moment, it seemed the primal nature of his transformation might override his human consciousness. Then, slowly, he lowered his claw. Capture, he repeated, the word sounding strange in his thunderous voice. Yes, heroes capture. Instead of crushing Worm, Izuku used his tail to restrain the villain, pinning him carefully but firmly to the ground. This one threatened family, he told Ryukyu. He should be punished. Ryukyu approached cautiously. He will be, through proper channels. That's what separates heroes from villains, Izuku. Not power, but how we use it. As police arrived to secure the scene, Izuku struggled with his new form, finding the reversion process more difficult than transformation. It took nearly 10 minutes of concentration before he finally shifted back to his human form, collapsing from exhaustion as he did. Ryukyu caught him before he hit the ground. "You did well, cousin," she said softly, "but we need to talk about what just happened." Later, after medical checks and police statements, Ryukyu confronted him in the privacy of her agency. "What you did today wasn't in any of our family records," she said seriously. "A full dragon transformation of that magnitude. It's unprecedented." Izuku, still recovering his strength, nodded. "It felt right, natural, like I was always meant to take that form." "The power you displayed could level cities, Izuku." Ryukyu's expression was grave. "Do you understand the responsibility that comes with it?" For once, Izuku didn't respond with his usual confidence or dismissal. The experience had shifted something fundamental in his understanding. "I felt it," he admitted. "When I transformed, the instinct wasn't just to destroy threats, but to protect territory. To protect," he hesitated, the concept still new, "family." Ryukyu's expression softened. "That's the true nature of dragons in our lineage, Izuku. Not just strength or dominance, but protection. The strongest creature protects what's valuable." As his internship concluded, Izuku returned to UA changed, not weaker, never that, but more thoughtful. The experience had awakened something beyond power in him, a purpose. And just in time, for the League of Villains had not forgotten the Dragon Boy who had humiliated them at the USJ. Their next move would target him specifically, bringing a trial unlike any he had faced before. The training camp in the forest should have been routine. Class 1A, accompanied by the Wild Pussycats, and Aizawa, focused on quirk-strengthening exercises in a remote mountainous area. For Izuku, whose power already exceeded most pro heroes, the training took a different form. Aizawa had him practice minute control rather than raw output, creating the smallest possible flame clouds, the most precise wind cuts, the most controlled transformations. "Your problem isn't strength," Aizawa explained bluntly. "It's finesse." Izuku, surprisingly, didn't argue. His experience with Ryukyu had taught him the value of control. Even Kaido, in his dreams and instinctive memories, had demonstrated precision alongside overwhelming power. "The strongest creature isn't just the most destructive," he acknowledged, creating a flame cloud small enough to fit in his palm. "It's the most complete." On the third night of camp, while most students recovered from the day's grueling exercises, Izuku sat in meditation, working to harmonize his human consciousness with his dragon instincts. The full transformation he'd achieved during his internship remained just beyond reach, requiring emotional catalysts he couldn't manufacture through will alone. His concentration broke when he sensed it, a change in the air, a foreign scent carried on the breeze. Intruders. Without alerting the others, he rose and moved silently toward the forest's edge. His enhanced senses picked up movements, multiple targets approaching with stealth, but not enough to evade his detection. The League of Villains had found them. Rather than raising an alarm that might trigger an immediate attack, Izuku circled wide, tracking the approaching threats. He counted at least 12 distinct scents, including one that made his scales bristle instinctively. Something wrong, unnatural. A familiar voice stopped him in his tracks. "Looking for us, Dragon Boy." Shigaraki Tomura stepped from behind a tree, hands held casually at his sides, the disembodied hands that decorated his body gleaming in the moonlight. "You," Izuku growled, reaching for his kanabo. "Ah!" Shigaraki wagged a finger. "I wouldn't. We're just here to talk." Villains don't come to talk in the middle of the night. Shigaraki's chapped lips pulled into something resembling a smile. Villains? Heroes? Such limited thinking. He took a step closer. "We've been watching you, Midoriya Izuku. You're not like the others. Your power, it's beautiful, destructive, natural." Izuku's eyes narrowed. "What do you want?" "To offer you your rightful place." Shigaraki spread his arms. "Why chain yourself to their rules, their weak ideals of heroism? You were born to dominate, not protect sheep who fear your very existence." The villain's words struck uncomfortably close to thoughts Izuku himself had harbored before UA, before his experiences with All Might and Ryukyu. "I protect what's mine," he stated firmly. "My territory, my family, my class." Shigaraki's expression darkened. "Family? Class? They're using you. A weapon they want to control. Do you think they'd hesitate to turn on you if you became too powerful? Too independent?" "You sound like Worm," Izuku observed coldly. "He made similar arguments before I crushed him." Worm was a fool with delusions of grandeur. Shigaraki stepped closer. "I offer reality. Join us, and you'll never need to hold back again. No more exercises in control. No more pretending to be smaller than you are." For a moment, just a moment, Izuku felt the temptation, the freedom to use his full power without restraint, to be acknowledged not as a student or a hero in training, but as what he truly was, the strongest creature. Then he remembered Ryukyu's words about protection, All Might's lessons on using power responsibly, his mother's gentle guidance and his father's pride. "No," he said simply. Shigaraki's face contorted with rage. "No? No, you reject such an offer for what? To be their pet dragon?" "I reject it because it's beneath me," Izuku replied, his voice growing deeper as the partial transformation began. "The truly strong don't need to destroy the weak, only to guide them, protect them. Then, you'll die with them," Shigaraki snarled, signaling to the forest. Figures emerged from the darkness, the Vanguard Action Squad of the League of Villains. Dabi with his blue flames, Toga with her manic grin and blood-drawing equipment, Muscular with his fiber-enhanced body, Moonfish with his extending teeth, Mustard with his gas mask, Spinner, Magni, Twice, and others. "You think numbers will help you?" Izuku asked, unsheathing his kanabo. "No," Shigaraki replied, stepping back as a final figure emerged from the trees. "But he might." The creature that stepped forward resembled the Nomu from USJ, but evolved. More humanoid, more controlled, with the same exposed brain but enhanced musculature and what appeared to be multiple quirk modifications visible across its body. "Meet High End," Shigaraki introduced with malicious glee, "specifically designed after our last encounter. Think of him as your antithesis." The Nomu fixed Izuku with unnervingly intelligent eyes and spoke, something the USJ Nomu had never done. "Dragon," it growled, voice guttural but clear. "Fight." Izuku assessed the situation with predatory clarity. The villains had surrounded him, cutting off his route back to camp. They clearly intended to either recruit him or eliminate him before attacking the others. His best option was to alert his classmates and teachers. Inhaling deeply, chest glowing blue, he unleashed not an attack but a signal. Bolo Breath. The blue fire shot straight up into the night sky, a beacon that would be visible for miles. The message was clear. Danger. Kill him, Shigaraki ordered, and the villains attacked from all sides. What followed was chaos. Dabi's blue flames met Izuku's Bolo Breath in a conflagration that ignited the surrounding forest. Muscular, charged with strength that might have impressed Izuku under different circumstances. Thunder Bagua. The Kanabo strike caught Muscular mid-charge, sending him crashing through multiple trees. But before Izuku could press his advantage, High End was upon him, moving with speed that belied its bulk. Dragon Fight! The enhanced Nomu roared, its fist connecting with Izuku's jaw with enough force to crack ordinary concrete. Izuku staggered, tasting blood, and grinned ferally. Finally, something interesting. His transformation advanced, blue scales covering his body, size increasing as he entered his hybrid form. Wings spread from his back, and his tail lashed out, catching Toga as she attempted to approach from behind. Tatsumaki! The tornado generated by his Kanabo swept up Mustard and Spinner, flinging them into the distance. But the other villains pressed their attack, clearly coordinated to separate Izuku from potential allies. The battle moved deeper into the forest, away from the camp. Izuku realized their strategy too late. They were drawing him out, isolating him. "Worried I'll have backup?" he taunted, deflecting Dabi's flames with a wind scythe. "Afraid you can't handle me alone?" "On the contrary," Shigaraki called from a safe distance. "We're saving your precious classmates from collateral damage. Thoughtful, aren't we?" The distraction cost Izuku. High End landed a devastating blow to his midsection, followed by what appeared to be an acid attack from modified glands in its palms. The combination actually penetrated Izuku's scales, causing him to roar in pain. "Like it?" Shigaraki gloated. High End carries quirks specifically designed to counter dragon physiology. Acid formulated for scale penetration, vibration strikes that bypass impact resistance, even sound waves tuned to disrupt your transformation. As if on cue, the Nomu opened its mouth and emitted a high-frequency screech that sent Izuku to his knees, his transformation fluctuating as scales receded then reformed erratically. Through the pain, Izuku realized the truth. They had studied him. prepared for him specifically. This wasn't a recruitment gone wrong, it was an assassination disguised as an offer. "You never expected me to join," he growled, fighting to maintain his form. Shigaraki's chapped lips split in a grin. "Smart dragon. No, we didn't. You're too much of a threat to leave alive, especially now that your full transformation has manifested. Our sources in the government are quite concerned about your potential." Izuku's eyes widened slightly. Government sources? This wasn't just the League acting independently? Before he could process this revelation, High End attacked again, this time accompanied by Dabi and Muscular in a coordinated assault. Even for Izuku, the combination proved challenging, especially with the sound waves continuing to disrupt his transformation. A blast of fire from behind him caught Dabi off guard, forcing the scarred villain to dodge. "Midoriya!" Todoroki called, emerging from the burning forest alongside Bakugo, Kirishima, and Ida. "We saw your signal," Shigaraki cursed. "Kill them all, now!" The battle expanded as Class 1A students engaged with League villains. Bakugo's explosions lit up the night as he faced off against Toga. Kirishima's hardened body blocked Muscular's attacks, while Ida evacuated injured students. Todoroki created ice barriers to contain the spreading forest fire. But High End remained focused solely on Izuku, its attacks growing more precise as it analyzed his fighting style. "You learn," Izuku observed, blocking a combination strike that mimicked his own Thunder Bagua technique. "Interesting." The Nomu's response was another sonic attack, this one so intense that Izuku's hybrid form destabilized completely, forcing him back to human state. Even his kanabo felt suddenly heavy in his hands. "You see," Shigaraki called from the sidelines, "we can beat you. We can beat anyone once we understand them. That's the flaw in power, Midoriya. It creates patterns, weaknesses." For the first time in his life, Izuku felt genuine concern. Not fear, never that, but the recognition that he faced an opponent specifically engineered to counter his abilities. Even in his full dragon form, the sonic attacks would likely affect him. As High End closed in for what might have been a killing blow, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Have no fear, for I am here." All Might arrived in a blur of motion, his signature Texas smash catching High End mid-attack and sending the Nomu crashing through the tree line. "Young Midoriya," the symbol of peace called, landing beside the weakened student. "Are you all right?" Izuku struggled to his feet, using his kanabo for support. "The Nomu? It has counters for my abilities, sound-based attacks that disrupt transformation." All Might nodded grimly. "Stay back and recover. I'll handle this." But as the hero moved to engage High End, Izuku grabbed his arm. "Wait, it learns, adapts, don't use predictable attacks." Their brief exchange was interrupted as High End returned, moving even faster than before, its body seemingly undamaged from All Might's powerful blow. "Symbol of peace," it growled, voice more articulate than earlier. "Target acquired." What followed was a display of combat that awed even Izuku. All Might and High End exchanged blows that shattered the surrounding landscape, each impact creating shockwaves that felled trees and carved craters in the earth. But as the battle continued, a disturbing pattern emerged. High End was getting stronger, faster, more precise, learning from All Might's techniques and developing counters in real time. And All Might, Izuku realized with sudden clarity, was weakening. The symbol of peace's movements were becoming fractionally slower, his strikes less devastating. In the distance, Aizawa and the Pussycats had arrived, coordinating the evacuation of students and engaging the remaining villains. Shigaraki, seeing his forces overwhelmed, signaled retreat. "High End," he called. "Complete your primary objective." The Nomu disengaged from All Might and with frightening speed, charged directly at Izuku. Time seemed to slow. Izuku, still weakened from the sonic attacks, raised his kanabo in defense. All Might moved to intercept, but wouldn't reach him in time. In that moment, as High End's lethal strike approached, something broke through Izuku's consciousness. Not just the battle instinct he'd always possessed, but something deeper. A memory not his own, yet part of him. "If you want to kill me, you'd better bring something stronger." The voice of Kaido echoed in his mind. With a roar that shook the mountains, Izuku transformed, not to hybrid form, but directly to his full dragon state. The massive azure serpentine body erupted outward, growing to its full, imposing size in seconds. The sonic attack from High End continued, but this time, something was different. In full dragon form, Izuku's consciousness had shifted, less human, more primal. The sound that had disrupted his transformation now simply registered as noise. Insignificant, his draconic voice boomed. High-end, programmed to adapt, launched itself at the Azure Dragon, its fists glowing with acid and vibration quirks. Izuku's massive tail swung with surprising speed, catching the Nomu midair. Reimei Hake! Lightning exploded from his scales as the impact crushed High-end against a mountainside with such force that the ground cracked in a spiderweb pattern extending hundreds of meters. But the Nomu, true to its design, began regenerating almost immediately, pulling itself from the crater with damaged but functioning limbs. Adaptation has limits, Izuku observed, clouds forming around his serpentine body as he rose into the air. Bolo Breath! The concentrated blue flame that erupted from his draconic maw wasn't aimed directly at High-end, but at the mountain behind it. The intense heat melted stone to magma, which cascaded down onto the Nomu, engulfing it completely. Still, incredibly, the creature fought its way out of the molten rock, its body blackened and deformed but regenerating. It opened its mouth to emit another sonic attack. Enough, Izuku declared. With speed impossible for his massive size, he dove from the sky, jaws opening wide. Before High-end could react, Izuku had engulfed it completely, swallowing the Nomu whole. The battlefield fell silent, all combat ceasing as villains and heroes alike stared in shock at what had just occurred. Within Izuku's draconic body, High-end struggled against digestive acid strong enough to dissolve steel. Its regeneration fought a losing battle against dissolution until, finally, it could adapt no more. Shigaraki's anguished scream broke the silence. No, that's impossible. We designed it perfectly. We accounted for everything. The Azure Dragon turned its golden gaze upon the hand-covered villain. You calculated power. You forgot nature. Before Izuku could advance on Shigaraki, Kurogiri's warp gate appeared, and the remaining villains escaped into swirling purple mist. As the immediate threat passed, Izuku found himself surrounded by his classmates and teachers, all staring up at his true form with expressions ranging from awe to fear. All Might approached cautiously. Young Midoriya, are you in control? The massive dragon lowered its head to eye level with the symbol of peace. I am always in control, All Might. This is my true nature. Can you revert back? Aizawa asked, his quirk-canceling gaze having no effect on the transformation. Izuku considered this. The full dragon form felt right, natural, powerful. But it was also too large for the human world he inhabited. With effort, he began to shrink, scales receding, form condensing, until finally he stood before them in human appearance once more. The reversion left him exhausted, collapsing to one knee. Surprisingly, it was Bakugo who stepped forward first, offering a hand up. That, the explosive boy admitted grudgingly, was not completely terrible. Izuku looked at the offered hand, then at Bakugo's face, no longer filled with blind hatred, but with something approaching respect. He accepted the help, rising to his feet. You fought well, he acknowledged. All of you did. The cleanup and aftermath of what became known as the training camp incident changed public perception of Class 1A. No longer were they just first-year students. They were survivors who had faced villains and emerged victorious. For Izuku, the consequences were more personal. The government agency that monitored powerful quirks requested a formal evaluation of his abilities, particularly his full dragon transformation. Ryukyu accompanied him as family representation. We need to understand the extent of your capabilities, the stern-faced committee head explained. A quirk of your magnitude presents both opportunities and concerns. Izuku, sitting calmly despite the clinical environment and monitoring equipment attached to his body, simply nodded. You're afraid. The committee members exchanged glances. Cautious, one corrected. Your power exceeds most pro-heroes already, and you're still developing. Projections suggest you could eventually rival All Might himself. I already do, Izuku stated matter-of-factly. In raw power, at least. Ryukyu placed a warning hand on his arm, but he continued. But power isn't the point. Strength without purpose is meaningless. He looked each committee member in the eye. My purpose is protection, territory, family, those who earn respect. And if someone directed that protection toward harmful ends, a committee member challenged. If you were manipulated or controlled, Izuku laughed, the sound echoing in the sterile room. No one controls the strongest creature. Despite their concerns, the committee could find no legal basis to restrict Izuku beyond standard hero course regulations. His performance against the League, particularly his defeat of High End, had demonstrated both power and restraint. As his first year at UA concluded, Izuku found himself changed in ways he hadn't anticipated. Still the strongest in his class, that would never change, but with a growing understanding of what that strength meant. During the final exercise of the year, a simulated disaster response, All Might pulled him aside. Young Midoriya, the symbol of peace, began, his permanent smile somehow more genuine than usual. I owe you an apology. Izuku tilted his head questioningly. When you first came to UA, I saw only your power and your intensity. I worried you might become something dangerous. All Might placed a massive hand on Izuku's shoulder. But I've watched you grow not just in strength, but in purpose. You've found what truly matters to protect. Izuku considered this. I was born strong, he acknowledged, but strength alone is empty. I needed territory worth defending. All Might laughed, an unusual way to phrase it, but yes, that's exactly it. Heroes need something to protect, not just enemies to defeat. As they rejoined the exercise, Izuku watched his classmates working together. Bakugo and Kirishima clearing debris, Todoroki controlling fires, Uraraka evacuating civilians, Ida coordinating movements. Not weaklings to be dominated, but a pack worth leading, worth protecting. My territory, he murmured to himself, a slight smile touching his usually stern features. Silence hung over the devastated forest clearing. The azure glow of Izuku's scales had faded as he returned to human form, but the air still crackled with residual energy. His classmates stood at a respectful distance, their expressions a mixture of awe and unease. Even All Might seemed momentarily lost for words. What was that? Kirishima finally asked, breaking the silence. Izuku rose to his full height, rolling his shoulders as if adjusting to his human form again. My true nature, he replied simply. Aizawa approached, his usually stoic expression betraying a hint of concern. That transformation exceeded anything in your quirk registry. The government will have questions. Let them ask, Izuku said, retrieving his kanabo from where it had fallen during his transformation. The weapon, despite the battle's intensity, bore not a scratch. I swallowed that thing. High end. It's dissolving inside me. All Might stepped forward. Young Midoriya, are you in pain? Should we... No, Izuku interrupted, his golden eyes narrowing. I feel different. Stronger, like I'm absorbing its power. That night, as medical teams attended to the injured students and heroes, Izuku sat alone on a hillside overlooking the devastation. His body hummed with unfamiliar energy, not pain, but a sensation of something awakening. The high-end Nomu had been specifically engineered to counter him, yet in his full dragon form, he had consumed it entirely. Now, its essence seemed to be triggering something dormant within him. Midoriya. He turned to find Todoroki approaching, the heterochromatic boy's expression carefully neutral. What is it? Izuku asked. You didn't just defeat that Nomu, you devoured it. Todoroki sat beside him, maintaining a cautious distance. Is that normal for your quirk? Izuku considered the question. No, it was instinct. Something ancient, something, he paused, searching for the right word, inevitable. They sat in silence for several minutes before Todoroki spoke again. They'll come back for you. The League, that Shigaraki seemed personal. A feral smile spread across Izuku's face. Good, next time he won't escape. Later that night, as the camp slept under increased security, Izuku found himself unable to rest. The energy within him continued to build, pulsing through his veins like liquid fire. He slipped away from the dormitory and into the forest, seeking solitude. In a small clearing, he sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, attempting to focus on the strange power surging through him. It felt different from his quirk, more primal, more fundamental. What are you? He whispered to himself, as if in response, the world around him suddenly changed. Not physically, but in his perception. With his eyes still closed, he became aware of presences. Dozens of them. The sleeping students in the dormitory. The vigilant heroes standing guard, small animals moving through the underbrush. He could sense them all, their locations, their strength, their very essence. Izuku's eyes snapped open, but the sensation remained. The world had gained a new dimension, one invisible yet undeniably real. Observation, he murmured, a word surfacing from the same part of his consciousness that knew the names of techniques he'd never been taught. Ken Bunshoku Haki. The following morning, as the students prepared for emergency evacuation back to UA, Izuku approached All Might. The symbol of peace looked tired, his permanent smile strained around the edges. "Young Midoriya?" he greeted. "Are you feeling better?" "I need to speak with you privately," Izuku stated. "Something has changed." They walked to a secluded area away from curious ears. All Might's expression grew serious as they stopped. "Last night," Izuku began without preamble, "I discovered something, a new power. Not my quirk, but something else." All Might's brow furrowed. "Secondary quirk awakening? It's rare, but not unprecedented." "No," Izuku shook his head. "This isn't a quirk. It's different, more fundamental." He closed his eyes briefly. "Right now, there are 3 birds in the tree behind you. A teacher is approaching from the east. Present Mike, based on his energy signature. And you." His golden eyes opened, fixing on All Might. "You're weaker than you appear. Something is wrong with your power." All Might took an involuntary step back, his smile completely gone. "How could you possibly know that?" "I can sense it. Life energy, presence, intentions." Izuku clenched his fist. "The knowledge came to me like my techniques. It's called Haki." "Haki?" All Might repeated, clearly unfamiliar with the term. "I've never heard of such a power." "Because it doesn't exist in this world," Izuku stated with absolute certainty. "Except in me." The evacuation to UA proceeded under heavy hero security. During the journey, Izuku continued to explore his newfound sensory abilities. Every living being registered as a presence in his mind, some bright and clear, others dim and unfocused. He could sense emotions, intentions, even glimpse flashes of immediate futures when someone prepared to move or act. But observation Haki, he somehow knew, was merely the beginning. Upon returning to UA, Principal Nezu called Izuku to a private meeting. The intelligent animal sat behind his desk, paws steepled together, as Izuku entered. "Midoriya," Nezu greeted. "Please, sit down. We have much to discuss." Izuku took the offered seat, his massive frame making the chair seem comically small. "About the camp incident." "Yes, though more specifically about you." Nezu studied him with unnerving intelligence. "Reports indicate you transformed into a full dragon form and consumed a Nomu. The government is quite interested in understanding how that's possible." "I'm evolving," Izuku stated simply, "becoming what I was always meant to be." "And what is that exactly?" Izuku met Nezu's gaze unflinchingly. "The strongest creature." Later that week, as classes resumed under heightened security, Izuku found himself summoned to a special training facility beneath A. Designed for quirk assessment and development, the reinforced chamber could withstand even the most destructive abilities. Aizawa and All Might waited for him, along with a team of quirk specialists from the government. "Midoriya," Aizawa began, "given recent events, we need a comprehensive evaluation of your abilities, both known and newly discovered." The testing began with physical assessments. Izuku's strength, already monstrous, had increased significantly. His Kanabo strikes now generated shockwaves capable of shattering reinforced concrete walls without direct contact. "Incredible," one specialist murmured, reviewing the data. "His output has nearly doubled since his last evaluation." Next came transformation testing. Izuku shifted between his human, hybrid, and full dragon forms with increasing control, the transitions becoming smoother, faster. In his full dragon form, he demonstrated weather manipulation on a scale that forced them to end the test prematurely when lightning began striking inside the facility. "This exceeds any weather manipulation quirk on record," another specialist noted, her voice betraying a hint of fear. Finally, they asked about his new sensory abilities. "Explain this Haki again," Aizawa requested, his expression skeptical. Izuku, back in human form, considered how to demonstrate. "It's energy, life force. Everyone has it, but few can harness it." He closed his eyes. "Right now, 17 people are watching this test from Observation Room 3. One of them is afraid of me. His heart rate is elevated. Another is fascinated, probably a scientist. And behind that wall," he pointed without looking, "someone is approaching. Recovery girl, bringing medical supplies in case I injure myself during testing." The door opened precisely where he had pointed, revealing a startled recovery girl carrying a medical kit. "How did you?" she began. "Observation Haki," Izuku stated, opening his eyes. But there's more to it than just sensing. He extended his arm toward a testing dummy. Without touching it, without using his quirk, he focused his will. The dummy suddenly collapsed, as if crushed by invisible force. Haoshoku Haki, Conqueror's Haki, he explained to the stunned observers. The power to dominate the will of others. If I directed it at people instead of objects, they would lose consciousness. All Might stepped forward. Young Midoriya, this power, where does it come from? Izuku's expression became distant. From within. From the same place as my knowledge of Thunder Bagua and Bolo Breath. From memories of another life, another world. His golden eyes focused again. A world where I was the strongest creature alive, where I ruled the seas and skies. The testing continued for days, each session revealing new facets of Izuku's evolving abilities. In addition to observation and Conqueror's Haki, he discovered Armament Haki, the power to create invisible armor around his body or objects. When he coated his Kanabo with this energy, its destructive capacity increased exponentially. During one particularly intense session, Izuku faced a gauntlet of robotic opponents designed to push him to his limits. As the machines converged, he focused his Conqueror's Haki, channeling it through his Armament Haki and into his Kanabo. Thunder Bagua. The strike released not just physical force, but a wave of black lightning that obliterated everything in its path. The observation window cracked, despite its reinforced construction. Advanced application, Izuku murmured, studying his Kanabo with interest. Coding attacks with Conqueror's Haki. In the observation room, All Might turned to Aizawa. This power, it's beyond anything we've seen. Beyond quirks entirely. Aizawa's tired eyes narrowed. That's what concerns me. If it's not a quirk, then my erasure won't affect it. Nothing in our current understanding can counter it. Do you believe he's dangerous? All Might asked quietly. Aizawa watched as Izuku casually demolished another wave of combat robots. He's always been dangerous. The question is, dangerous to whom? As word spread about Izuku's evolving abilities, his classmates' reactions varied widely. Some, like Kirishima and Uraraka, maintained their friendly approach, though with a new undercurrent of awe. Others, like Tokoyami and Todoroki, treated him with increased respect bordering on deference. A few, including Mineta and Koda, could barely conceal their fear. Bakugo alone seemed determined to challenge him even more fiercely. Oi, Deku! The explosive boy called during a training session. Just because you ate a Nomu doesn't make you invincible. Fight me properly. Izuku regarded Bakugo with newfound perception. Through his observation Haki, he could sense the complex emotions churning beneath Bakugo's aggressive exterior. Determination, frustration, but also a genuine drive to improve that Izuku found worthy of respect. Very well, he agreed, setting aside his Kanabo. Hand-to-hand only. No full transformation. Their sparring match drew the attention of the entire class. Bakugo attacked with everything he had, his explosions more controlled, more tactical than ever before. Izuku, limiting himself to his partial dragon form, parried and countered with precision. Then, deciding to test his new abilities, Izuku coated his fist with invisible armament Haki. When Bakugo launched a particularly powerful explosion directly at him, Izuku punched straight through it, with the blast parting around his protected fist like water. Bakugo's eyes widened in shock as Izuku's Haki-enhanced strike connected with his chest, sending him skidding backward. The explosive boy managed to stay on his feet, but blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. What the hell was that? He demanded, wiping the blood away. That wasn't your quirk. No, Izuku confirmed. Something new. Something only I can do. Later, as Bakugo received treatment for bruised ribs, Izuku found himself approached by Todoroki. That power, the dual quirk user said quietly, it's different from before, more controlled, more fundamental. Izuku nodded. Haki, the power of will made manifest. Can others learn it? No, Izuku stated with certainty. It's not native to this world. It exists in me because... He paused, considering how to explain. Because I'm not entirely of this world either. Todoroki's heterochromatic eyes studied him thoughtfully. The villains will come for you again. They fear what you're becoming. A predatory smile spread across Izuku's face. They should. Next time, I won't let them escape. 2 weeks after the training camp incident, as Izuku continued to refine his Haki abilities, an unexpected visitor arrived at UA. His cousin, Pro Hero Ryukyu, requested a private meeting with both him and the school administration. In Principal Nezu's office, Ryukyu got straight to the point. There's been chatter in government circles about Izuku's evolution. Some agencies are concerned. Concerned about what, specifically? Nezu inquired, his intelligent eyes shifting between the dragon heroes. His potential, Ryukyu stated diplomatically. The government quirk registry has officially classified him as an Omega-level threat, the same category as All for One. All Might, present for the meeting, leaned forward. Surely that's an overreaction? Nah, young Midoriya has demonstrated nothing but heroic intentions. It's not about intentions, Ryukyu clarified. It's about capacity. His full dragon form alone could level cities. Add these new hockey abilities, and there's effectively no known counter to him. Throughout the discussion, Izuku remained silent, his golden eyes observing the exchanges with predatory intensity. Finally, he spoke. They fear what they don't understand, what they can't control. His deep voice filled the room. But their fear is irrelevant. I protect what's mine, my territory, my people. As long as they don't threaten what's mine, they have nothing to fear. Nezu steepled his paws. Perhaps we should focus on demonstrating that your powers serve heroic purposes, Midoriya. A formal internship with an established agency might help alleviate concerns. I have a suggestion, Ryukyu offered. The government has established a special task force to hunt down the remaining League members after the training camp attack. If Izuku joined under my supervision, it would show his commitment to heroism while allowing him to use his full abilities against legitimate threats. Izuku's expression shifted, a predatory gleam entering his eyes. Hunting the League. Finding Shigaraki. He nodded slowly. Yes, that appeals to me. Thus began Izuku's official hunt for the League of Villains. Operating under a special dispensation that classified him as a quirk special operative rather than a student hero, he joined a task force comprised of top pros including Ryukyu, Endeavor, Hawks, and Mirko. During their first briefing, Endeavor made his skepticism clear. I don't care what special powers you've developed, boy. In the field, you follow orders and protocols. Izuku regarded the flame hero with unimpressed calm. Through his observation haki, he could sense the man's complex emotions, pride, insecurity, and a burning need to prove himself now that All Might was showing signs of weakness. I'll follow effective strategies, Izuku replied. Nothing more, nothing less. Hawks, the winged hero, intervened before tension could escalate. According to intelligence, a League cell has been operating from an abandoned industrial zone in Yokohama. Surveillance suggests Dabi may be present, along with several Nomu prototypes. Izuku's interest sharpened. Dabi, the one with blue flames, he was at the training camp. He's mine, Endeavor declared firmly. I have unfinished business with that one. Ryukyu glanced at Izuku, noting the dangerous gleam in his eyes. We'll operate in teams. Endeavor and Hawks will approach from the south. Midoriya and I will secure the northern perimeter. Mirko will provide rapid response wherever needed. The operation began under cover of darkness. Izuku, in his human form with his kanabo strapped to his back, moved with surprising stealth for someone of his size. Ryukyu, maintaining her human form as well, followed close behind. I sense them, Izuku murmured, eyes closed as he extended his observation haki. 7 individuals inside the main warehouse. 3 have quirk signatures similar to Nomu. 1 is significantly stronger than the others, likely Dabi. Ryukyu activated her communicator. Midoriya confirmed 7 targets, including 3 Nomu types and likely Dabi, proceeding as planned. The coordinated strike began precisely at midnight. Hawks' feathers disabled security systems, while Endeavor created a fiery diversion at the south entrance. Simultaneously, Izuku and Ryukyu breached the northern wall. Inside, chaos erupted. The lesser villains scattered in panic, while the Nomu prototypes moved to engage the intruders. Dabi, recognizable by his scarred face and blue flames, stood calmly at the center of the warehouse. The Dragon Boy, he observed as Izuku stepped through the rubble. I was wondering when you'd come hunting. Izuku unsheathed his kanabo, coating it with invisible armament haki. You're first, then Shigaraki. Dabi's response was a massive wave of blue fire that engulfed Izuku completely. Ryukyu shouted in alarm, beginning her transformation to dragon form. But as the flames cleared, Izuku stood unharmed, his skin partially scaled, his eyes glowing with golden intensity. Fire doesn't work on dragons, he stated flatly. Thunder Bagua. The Kanabo strike moved faster than most eyes could follow. Dabi attempted to dodge, but Izuku had already tracked his movement with observation haki, adjusting his attack accordingly. The weapon connected with Dabi's midsection, enhanced by both armament haki and Izuku's monstrous strength. The impact sent Dabi crashing through multiple storage containers, his body leaving a path of destruction before coming to rest nearly 50 meters away. Remarkably, he struggled to his feet, blood trickling from his mouth. "Stronger than you look," Izuku acknowledged, approaching steadily, "but not strong enough." Dabi snarled, unleashing his most powerful attack, a concentrated beam of blue fire hot enough to melt steel. "Die, you monster!" Izuku didn't dodge. Instead, he inhaled deeply, his chest glowing with blue energy. Bolo Breath. The blue flame that erupted from Izuku's mouth met Dabi's fire head-on. For a moment, the two attacks seemed evenly matched, until Izuku's flame began pushing backward, it's like overwhelming Dabi's with superior heat and force. The villain's eyes widened in disbelief as his own attack was consumed, and Izuku's Bolo Breath continued toward him. At the last possible moment, he threw himself sideways, avoiding a direct hit but still catching the edge of the flame. His scream echoed through the warehouse as the fire burned through his already scarred skin. Meanwhile, Ryukyu engaged the Nomu prototypes at her dragon form, tearing through their regenerative bodies. Hawks and Endeavor burst in from the south, cornering the remaining villains. Dabi, severely injured but still conscious, glared at Izuku with hatred. "You think you've won? This is nothing. The League has plans for you, for everyone." When All for One returns, "He'll die too," Izuku interrupted, standing over the fallen villain. "Everyone who threatens what's mine will fall." Before Izuku could deliver a final strike, Endeavor pushed past him. "He's in custody now. We follow procedure." Izuku's golden eyes narrowed dangerously. "He'll escape. They always do. The weak justice system can't hold them." "That's not your call to make, kid," Endeavor growled, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face as he met Izuku's predatory gaze. "Midoriya," Ryukyu called, returning to human form as the last Nomu fell. "We achieved our objective. Let the legal system handle him now." After a tense moment, Izuku stepped back, allowing the heroes to secure Dabi. But as the villain was led away, Izuku made a promise that sent chills through everyone present. "When you escape, and you will, I'll be waiting. And next time, there will be no Endeavor to save you." The operation was hailed as a tremendous success. 3 Nomu prototypes destroyed, Dabi captured, and valuable intelligence recovered from the warehouse computers. For Izuku, however, it was merely the beginning. Over the following weeks, he participated in multiple raids against League cells, each time demonstrating greater mastery of his combined dragon and haki abilities. His fighting style evolved, becoming more refined, more devastating. During a confrontation with Spinner and Magni in an underground hideout, Izuku unveiled a new application of his power. As the villains attacked simultaneously, he stomped the ground and growled, "How Shoku Haki!" An invisible wave of dominating will exploded outward. The lesser villains immediately collapsed unconscious. Spinner staggered, barely remaining on his feet, while Magni fell to one knee. What the hell was that?" Spinner gasped, struggling to raise his massive sword. "The difference between us," Izuku replied calmly, approaching with measured steps. "Raime Hake." His kanabo, now consistently coated with black armament haki visible only to his eyes, struck with precision. Spinner's sword shattered on impact, along with the bones in his arms. The lizard-like villain didn't even have time to scream before a second strike rendered him unconscious. Magni, recovering enough to attack, fired a magnetic pulse at Izuku. He didn't dodge or block. Instead, he simply allowed his scales to emerge, the magnetic force dissipating harmlessly against his draconic physiology. "Magnetism affects metal," he observed. "Not dragons." As the villain backed away in growing panic, Izuku partially transformed, his right arm becoming fully draconic. "Kaido Senpu!" The spinning strike caught Magni mid-retreat, the impact creating a shockwave that collapsed part of the hideout ceiling. When the dust settled, the villain lay motionless in a crater. Hawks, arriving as backup, surveyed the scene with a low whistle. "Remind me never to get on your bad side, Midoriya. You didn't even use your full transformation." Izuku returned to human form, retrieving his kanabo. "They're weak, not worth the full dragon." As news of the raid spread, a pattern emerged. Villains began fleeing areas where Izuku was rumored to operate. Some even surrendered voluntarily rather than face the dragon hero, though Izuku himself rejected the title. "I'm not a hero," he told Ryukyu during a debriefing. "Not in the conventional sense. Heroes save, I hunt." His cousins studied him with concern. "You're becoming something else, Izuku. Something this world hasn't seen before." "Yes," he agreed, golden eyes gleaming. "The strongest creature, as I was always meant to be." His reputation grew, not just among villains but within hero society as well. Some pros regarded him with awe, others with unease, all with respect born partly of admiration, partly of fear. All Might, still teaching at UA despite his gradually declining power, called Izuku for a private conversation. "Young Midoriya," he began, his permanent smile seeming strained. "Your work with the task force has been impressive, but I'm concerned about your approach." Izuku tilted his head questioningly. "You're becoming known for brutality, for dominance rather than mercy." All Might's voice remained gentle despite the criticism. "A true hero inspires hope, not fear." "Fear serves its purpose," Izuku countered. "The strong establish hierarchies, its natural law." "Humans aren't just animals, young Midoriya. Society functions on more than strength alone." Izuku considered this, then responded with unexpected insight. "You're right, that's why I don't claim to be the symbol of peace. That's your domain, All Might. Mine is different." "And what is your domain, exactly?" A slow, predatory smile spread across Izuku's face. "Absolute strength. The knowledge that beyond law, beyond society's protections, something stronger exists, something that hunts those who would prey on others." All Might sighed, recognizing that Izuku's worldview had crystallized into something beyond conventional heroism. "Just remember that strength without compassion becomes tyranny." "Not tyranny," Izuku corrected. "Nature. The strongest protects what's valuable. My territory includes this society, these people. I protect them by eliminating threats permanently." The conversation ended without resolution, both recognizing that they followed different paths toward the same ultimate goal, a safer world. As months passed, Izuku's hunt for the League intensified. Each captured villain provided new intelligence, bringing him closer to his primary targets, Shigaraki, and ultimately, All for One. During a raid on a coastal facility suspected of housing Nomu production equipment, Izuku encountered Kurogiri for the first time since the training camp incident. The Mist villain attempted to create warp gates to evacuate valuable research, but found himself confronted by a predator who had evolved significantly. "Your Mist is just that, Mist," Izuku stated, approaching steadily as Kurogiri created portal after portal to escape. "And I can sense your real body within it." Focusing his observation haki, Izuku pinpointed the physical form hidden within the purple mist. Then, coating his fist with armament haki, he struck with precision. "Kaido hammer!" The impact connected with Kurogiri's hidden form, disrupting his quirk and causing the mist to dissipate partially. For the first time, glimpses of the villain's true body became visible. "Impossible," Kurogiri gasped, his normally composed voice shaking. "No one can see through my warp form." "I don't see," Izuku corrected, preparing another strike. "I sense your life force, your presence, your fear." Before he could attack again, Kurogiri managed to re-establish his quirk enough to create an emergency warp gate. Unlike previous encounters, however, Izuku was prepared. As the villain began to escape, Izuku exhaled a precisely controlled Bolo Breath that followed Kurogiri into the portal. The warp gate destabilized, its edges fluctuating wildly as Izuku's attack disrupted whatever destination Kurogiri had intended. When the gate collapsed, the Mist villain was gone, but not unscathed, based on the blood left behind. "He's wounded," Izuku observed to the task force members securing the facility. "And now he knows his quirk doesn't protect him from me. He'll lead us to Shigaraki." That night, as the task force celebrated another successful operation, Izuku withdrew to a training facility to continue refining his abilities. His mastery of haki had progressed rapidly, allowing him to combine it with his dragon powers in increasingly devastating ways. One application particularly intrigued him, the ability to coat his entire body in advanced Conqueror's haki, creating an aura that could damage opponents without physical contact. When combined with his draconic abilities, the potential was staggering. As he practiced, his phone rang, a special line used only by the task force. Ryukyu's voice came through, tense and urgent. Midoriya, we've got a situation. Dabi escaped custody during transfer. Injured 15 guards, 6 critically, but that's not the main concern. She paused, and Izuku could sense her hesitation even through the phone. Before he disappeared, he left a message, for you specifically. What message? Tell the dragon that Shigaraki is ready for him, tonight. Kamino Ward, the place where All Might fell. Izuku's golden eyes narrowed. It's a trap. Obviously, Ryukyu agreed, the task force is mobilizing, but it will take time to coordinate with local authorities and establish a perimeter. I'm not waiting, Izuku stated, already moving toward the exit. Midoriya, don't. This is exactly what they want, to isolate you. Good, he replied, his voice deepening as partial transformation began. Then for once, we want the same thing. Before Ryukyu could protest further, Izuku ended the call. Outside the facility, he looked up at the night sky, his body beginning its transformation. Wings erupted from his back, scales spreading across his form as he entered his hybrid state. Creating flame clouds beneath his feet, he rose into the air, the kanabo strapped securely to his back. Kamino Ward was nearly 30 kilometers away, a distance he could cover in minutes in his current form. As he soared above the city, Izuku extended his observation haki to its limits, searching for hostile presences. The area around the Kamino battle site, where All Might had fought All for One months earlier, radiated with malicious intent. Multiple strong signatures clustered there, including one that made his draconic blood boil with recognition. Shigaraki. Rather than approaching directly, Izuku landed atop a tall building several blocks from the presumed trap. In his hybrid form, he could see clearly even in darkness. The cityscape spread before him like a hunting ground. Closing his eyes, he focused his observation haki more precisely. Beyond the cluster of villains waiting at the designated location, he detected something else, a separate group approaching from the west. The task force moving faster than expected. Complications, he muttered, considering his options. The direct approach would endanger the task force members when they arrived. A subtle infiltration would take too long. But there was a third option, one that played to his strengths as a predator. Izuku inhaled deeply, his chest glowing with blue energy. Then, with precise control developed through months of training, he released a thin stream of Bolo Breath into the sky. The blue flame shot upward like a flare, visible for kilometers. Within minutes, as he expected, communication chatter among the waiting villains increased. They had spotted his signal and were now arguing about its meaning. Some wanted to investigate, others insisted on maintaining their ambush position. Perfect. While they debated, Izuku launched himself skyward again, but this time ascended much higher, nearly a kilometer above the city. From this vantage, hidden among actual clouds, he began generating his own weather system. Tatsumaki! The air around him began to swirl, forming a concentrated tornado that he carefully controlled. Unlike his earlier raw applications of this technique, he now maintained precise command over its power and direction. Below, the villains finally noticed the unnatural weather forming directly above their position. Some began to retreat, sensing the trap had been reversed. Too late. Izuku descended at tremendous speed, the tornado surrounding him like a cocoon of destructive force. His hybrid form, silhouetted against the swirling winds, presented a terrifying sight to those below. "It's him!" someone shouted. Spinner's voice, Izuku noted with his enhanced hearing. "Everyone scatter!" The tornado touched down in the center of the ambush site, its controlled fury demolishing the abandoned buildings that had concealed the villains. Debris flew in carefully directed patterns, hurting the League members rather than simply destroying them. From the chaos emerged Shigaraki, his face contorted with rage, hands extended as his decay quirk activated. "Midoriya!" Izuku landed before him, the tornado dissipating as he focused his attention on his primary target. "Shigaraki Tomura, you called for me." The hand-covered villain gestured frantically, and Nomu began emerging from the rubble, at least a dozen, though smaller and less refined than High-End had been. "You think you're evolving?" Shigaraki snarled. "So are we. These Nomu might not match you individually, but together, they'll tear you apart." Izuku surveyed the gathering threat with calm assessment. The Nomu encircled him, their modified bodies displaying a variety of quirks. Acid secretion, enhanced strength, blade-like appendages, even sound generation similar to what High-End had used. You still don't understand, Izuku stated, unsheathing his kanabo and coating it with visible black armament haki, a deliberate display of his evolving power. Numbers mean nothing against absolute strength. He stomped the ground once, channeling Hao Shoku haki in a controlled wave. 3 of the weaker Nomu immediately collapsed, their minds too undeveloped to withstand his dominating will. The rest staggered but remained upright. What? Shigaraki began before Izuku moved. Thunder Bagua! The Kanabo strike, enhanced with both armament and Conqueror's haki, connected with the nearest Nomu. The creature didn't just fall, it disintegrated, the combined haki energies destroying it at a fundamental level beyond physical damage. What followed wasn't a battle, but a demonstration. Izuku moved through the Nomu with methodical precision, each strike eliminating another threat. Some he destroyed with haki-enhanced Kanabo blows. Others he incinerated with controlled applications of Bolo Breath. One particularly resilient specimen he simply grabbed and tore apart with his hybrid form's monstrous strength. Shigaraki, watching his forces decimated, backed away in growing panic. This isn't possible. You're just a student, a quirk user. You can't be this strong. Izuku turned to him, golden eyes gleaming with predatory focus. I am not defined by quirks or by human limitations. I am something else entirely. As he advanced on Shigaraki, a warp gate suddenly opened behind the villain. Kurogiri, his mist form noticeably unstable from their previous encounter, called urgently, Shigaraki Tamura, we must retreat. The dragon is beyond our current capabilities. No! Shigaraki screamed, scratching his neck frantically until blood appeared. He needs to die. He needs to. His words cut off as Izuku launched forward with blinding speed. Kanabo raised for a killing strike. Kurogiri barely managed to envelop Shigaraki in his warp quirk before the weapon connected, the gate closing just as the haki-enhanced Kanabo passed through its edge. Izuku's strike hit empty air, the villains having escaped by the narrowest of margins. He stood motionless for a moment, disappointment evident in his posture. Then, sensing new presences approaching rapidly, he turned to find the task force arriving, Ryukyu in dragon form leading Endeavor, Hawks, and a contingent of support heroes. Midoriya, Ryukyu called, landing and returning to human form. What happened? We saw the tornado from kilometers away. Izuku gestured to the devastation surrounding him. Destroyed buildings, dismembered Nomu corpses, and clear evidence of an interrupted ambush. Shigaraki invited me. I accepted. He wasn't prepared. His golden eyes narrowed, but he escaped again, through Kurogiri's warp. Endeavor surveyed the destruction with a complex expression, part professional assessment, part unease at the sheer scale of devastation one individual could create. You engaged an entire League cell alone, the Flame Hero stated, against direct orders to wait for backup. I was the target, Izuku replied simply. I saw no reason to endanger others. Hawks, examining one of the destroyed Nomu with professional interest, whistled softly. Whatever you did to these things, it's thorough. Some of them look like they were torn apart from the inside. Haki, Izuku explained. Properly applied, it destroys more than just the physical body. Ryukyu approached him privately while the others secured the scene. Izuku, this level of independent action can't continue. The task force operates as a team for good reason. Izuku considered his cousin thoughtfully. He respected her, one of the few individuals he genuinely did. The hunt is becoming more focused. Shigaraki is getting desperate. The next time we meet, he won't escape. That's exactly what concerns me, Ryukyu replied. Your power is incredible, but your approach is becoming absolute. There's a difference between capturing villains and whatever this is. She gestured to the devastation around them. Hunting, Izuku stated. Predator and prey, natural law. We're heroes, Izuku, not predators. His golden eyes met hers directly. You're a hero. I'm something else, something this world needs just as much. The incident at Camino Ward made national news. Media outlets branded it the Dragon's Wrath, with footage from nearby security cameras showing glimpses of Izuku's tornado descent and the subsequent devastation. Public reaction was mixed, fear and awe in equal measure. Government agencies convened emergency meetings to discuss the Midoriya situation, as it was now officially termed. The task force itself underwent review, with some officials questioning whether Izuku should remain under hero supervision at all. Through it all, Izuku continued his training, refining his abilities to even greater levels. His mastery of haki in particular advanced rapidly. He could now maintain observation haki constantly, aware of presences and intentions across increasingly vast distances. His armament haki could be sustained indefinitely, creating an invisible armor that made him virtually impervious to most attacks. And his Conqueror's haki had evolved to the point where he could target specific individuals in a crowd, rendering them unconscious while leaving others unaffected. Combined with his draconic abilities, this made him perhaps the most formidable being on the planet, a fact that both hero society and the villain world were beginning to fully comprehend. The hunt for Shigaraki intensified following the Camino Ward incident. Intelligence suggested the League had retreated to a series of underground facilities, moving frequently to avoid detection. Despite the task force's best efforts, the villains remained elusive. Izuku, growing impatient with conventional search methods, proposed a more direct approach. "They're hiding from us," he stated during a strategy meeting, "so we make them come to us." Endeavor scowled. "We're not using civilians as bait, if that's what you're suggesting." "No," Izuku agreed. "We use me." His plan was audacious: publicly announce his separation from the task force, appearing to go rogue. Establish a territory, a specific area of the city where he would operate independently. Make it known that this territory was under his personal protection, inviting challengers who believed they could claim it. "It's a deliberate provocation," he explained. Shigaraki's obsession with me has become personal. If he believes I'm isolated, vulnerable, he'll come himself rather than sending underlings." Hawks nodded slowly. "It's not without precedent. Villains often have ego-driven responses to perceived challenges. It's also incredibly dangerous," Ryukyu countered. "Not just for you, but for civilians in your territory. If Shigaraki brings his full forces..." "He won't," Izuku interrupted with absolute certainty. "He wants to prove himself against me personally. His pride won't allow for anything else." After extensive debate, a modified version of the plan was approved. Izuku would establish a visible presence in the Hosu district, an area still recovering from the hero killer incidents, but with covert task force support monitoring from a distance. The media announcement was deliberately provocative. Dragon operative Midoriya establishes independent jurisdiction in Hosu district. Official statements cited philosophical differences with standard hero protocols, while carefully avoiding any suggestion of villainy. Within days, Izuku's presence transformed Hosu. Patrolling in his hybrid form, Kanabo visible on his back, he made no effort to conceal his activities. Petty criminals fled the district entirely. More serious threats found themselves confronted by a predator whose reputation now preceded him. During this period, Izuku continued refining his techniques, particularly the combination of haki with his draconic abilities. One evening, while dealing with a group of quirk-enhanced robbers, he unveiled a new application. Haoshoku Edition. His Kanabo, coated with the black lightning of advanced Conqueror's haki, struck the ground rather than any opponent. The impact created not just a physical shockwave, but a wave of dominating will that rendered everyone within 50 meters unconscious instantly. When the criminals were collected by police, one officer asked nervously, "What exactly did you do to them?" "Their vital signs are stable, but our medic says it's like their minds just shut down temporarily. I dominated their will," Izuku explained simply. "They'll recover. Most of them, anyway." Word of his methods spread quickly through the underworld. Within 2 weeks, Hosu's crime rate dropped by nearly 80%, not through arrests or convictions, but through fear. The message was clear: enter the dragon's territory at your peril. As expected, this provocation drew attention from more significant threats. The first serious challenge came from an unexpected source, a group calling themselves the Meta Liberation Army, led by the CEO of the Detonarat Company, Rikiya Yotsubashi. They approached Izuku directly, sending a formal representative to request a meeting. Curious about this new player and the power dynamics, Izuku agreed. The meeting took place on a rooftop overlooking Hosu. Yotsubashi, a seemingly ordinary businessman with an extraordinary quirk, spoke with carefully measured confidence. "Midoriya Izuku, the Dragon of UA, though I understand you've moved beyond such institutional affiliations now." Izuku, in human form but with his Kanabo prominently displayed, studied the man with his observation haki. The businessman's outward calm masked complex emotions, ambition, calculation, and a core belief in his own ideology that bordered on zealotry. "What do you want?" Izuku asked directly. "An alliance, potentially." Yotsubashi smiled pleasantly. "Our organization believes in quirk liberation, the fundamental right of every person to use their abilities freely without government restriction. Your recent independence suggests similar values." Izuku's golden eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. I don't seek freedom from restrictions. I simply acknowledge that restrictions don't apply to me." A philosophical distinction, perhaps, but the practical outcome is the same. Yotsubashi spread his hands. "The Meta Liberation Army has over 100,000 members worldwide, resources, intelligence networks, with your power and our infrastructure." "No," Izuku interrupted flatly. Yotsubashi blinked, his practiced smile faltering. "I don't think you understand what I'm offering." "I understand perfectly," Izuku stated, rising to his full, imposing height. "You want to use my strength for your ideology, to have the strongest creature as your weapon." His voice deepened, scales appearing along his neck and arms. "I am no one's weapon." The businessman took an involuntary step back, finally registering the danger he had placed himself in. "This is merely an initial discussion, perhaps with time." "There is no discussion," Izuku cut him off again. "You entered my territory. You sought me out. Now you understand. I serve no ideology but nature itself. The strong protect what's theirs. The weak submit or perish." Extending his observation haki, Izuku detected multiple presences surrounding the building, Meta Liberation Army members positioned as backup. He smiled coldly. "Your hidden forces. Call them in if you wish. It won't change the outcome." Yotsubashi's composed facade cracked completely. "You're making a grave mistake. The army is not like these petty criminals you've been intimidating. We are the future." Izuku stepped closer, his presence alone causing the businessman to retreat until his back hit the rooftop edge. "No, you are an annoyance, a distraction from my true hunt." "You mean Shigaraki?" Yotsubashi laughed nervously. "We've been tracking the League ourselves. They're nothing compared to our movement." This caught Izuku's attention. "You have intelligence on Shigaraki's location?" Sensing an opportunity to salvage the situation, Yotsubashi nodded quickly. "We do. Our networks are extensive. Perhaps we could provide this information as a gesture of goodwill?" Izuku considered the offer, then nodded once. "Provide the intelligence, then leave my territory, permanently." The information proved valuable, confirmation that the League had established a new base in an abandoned mountain facility originally built by the government for quirk research. More importantly, it suggested that Shigaraki was undergoing some form of enhancement process, possibly related to All for One's quirk. When Izuku shared this intelligence with the task force, reactions were mixed. "It could be a trap," Endeavor warned. "This Meta Liberation Army might be setting both us and the League up for elimination." Hawks, however, had his own sources. "My intelligence confirms unusual activity at that location. Power consumption way above normal, specialized equipment deliveries. Something big is happening there." Ryukyu turned to Izuku. "Your plan worked. We have a solid lead on Shigaraki, but we do this as a team, coordinated, strategic." Izuku nodded his agreement, though his golden eyes betrayed his predatory anticipation. "Shigaraki is evolving, just as I am. The next confrontation will be definitive." The task force prepared for what might be their final operation against the League. Support items, specialized equipment, and even international hero consultants were brought in. The facility's remote location made a covert approach possible, though satellite imagery showed defensive preparations around the perimeter. The night before the planned raid, Izuku stood on the balcony of his temporary quarters, gazing at the distant mountains where Shigaraki waited. His body hummed with power, scales occasionally shimmering across his skin in response to his anticipation. A familiar presence approached, All Might, who had insisted on joining the operation in an advisory capacity, despite his declining strength. Young Midoriya, the former symbol of peace, greeted. "Tomorrow is the culmination of your hunt." Izuku nodded, not turning from his contemplation of the distant target. "Shigaraki dies tomorrow. The League ends." All Might sighed heavily. "I didn't come to debate the ethics of your approach again. We've established our different perspectives." He moved to stand beside Izuku at the railing. "I came to tell you something about All for One." This caught Izuku's attention. He turned, golden eyes focusing intently on All Might. "You've never faced someone like him," All Might continued. "Not just powerful, but cunning, patient. He thinks in decades, not moments. Whatever Shigaraki is becoming, it's part of All for One's long game." "You think he'll be there," Izuku observed. "At the facility. I think he's never far from Shigaraki. Whether physically present or not, his influence is." All Might's normally cheerful expression turned grim. "If you encounter him directly, don't underestimate him because of his appearance or age. He's survived for generations by always having contingencies." Izuku considered this warning. "You're concerned for me." All Might laughed softly. "Despite our differences, young Midoriya, I've watched you grow into something extraordinary. Not the hero I envisioned, perhaps, but a force for change nonetheless." His smile returned, though tempered with seriousness. "I just want you to come back from this, whatever you become afterward." The operation began at dawn. Coordinated teams approached the mountain facility from multiple angles, with Izuku in his hybrid form leading the direct assault group. His observation haki extended to its maximum range, mapping the facility's defenses and occupants. 37 individuals inside, he reported through his communicator, most concentrated in the central chamber. Shigaraki is there, his presence is different, stronger, and something else, he frowned, focusing more intently. Something familiar, yet not. An echo of a presence, like a recording of a voice rather than the voice itself. All Might, monitoring from the command center, tensed at this description. All for One's quirk signature, but not All for One himself. Be extremely cautious. The perimeter defenses proved more formidable than anticipated. Nomu variants patrolled the approaches, while automated systems targeted any movement. Rather than a subtle infiltration, the operation quickly evolved into a direct confrontation. Izuku, impatient with the delays, took matters into his own hands. "I'm proceeding to the central chamber," he announced. "The rest of you handle the perimeter." Before anyone could object, he launched himself skyward, wings extended fully. Rising several hundred meters above the facility, he began generating a localized storm system. "Reime! Tatsumaki!" The hybrid technique combined his lightning control with his tornado generation, creating a concentrated storm funnel that descended directly onto the facility's main building. Reinforced walls designed to withstand conventional attacks crumbled under the focused atmospheric pressure. Through the breach he created, Izuku descended into chaos. Alarms blared as emergency systems activated. League members scattered in confusion, some attempting to secure research materials, others moving to defensive positions. In the central chamber, just as his haki had detected, Shigaraki waited. But the decay villain had changed dramatically. His body, partially encased in medical equipment, pulsed with unnatural energy. Multiple quirk signatures emanated from him, similar to a Nomu, but more integrated, more refined. "Midoriya," Shigaraki greeted, his voice deeper than before, his posture more controlled. "Right on schedule." Izuku landed, kanabo in hand, assessing his transformed opponent. "You've changed, taken in quirks that aren't yours. Perceptive." Shigaraki smiled, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than before. "My master's final gift, the ability to hold multiple quirks, to evolve beyond human limitation." He tilted his head, studying Izuku with unsettling intensity. "Not unlike yourself. Where is he?" Izuku demanded. "All for One. My master is everywhere and nowhere. His body is imprisoned, but his will continues through me." Shigaraki spread his arms, medical cables detaching as he stepped forward. "I am his legacy, his perfected weapon." Izuku coated his kanabo with black armament haki, visible now even to others as his mastery had increased. "You speak of weapons and tools, of being someone else's creation." His golden eyes narrowed. "That's why you'll never truly be strong." "Strong?" Shigaraki laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally. "I've moved beyond such simple concepts. Power isn't about individual strength anymore. It's about accumulation, adaptation." His body began to transform, muscle mass increasing as multiple quirks activated simultaneously. "Let me demonstrate." The attack came with blinding speed. Shigaraki crossing the chamber in an instant, his decay quirk active in one hand, while the other glowed with what appeared to be an impact enhancement ability. Izuku, tracking the movement with his observation haki, blocked the decay hand with his kanabo while sidestepping the impact strike. "Faster," he acknowledged, "but still predictable." Shigaraki grinned. I'm just warming up. What followed was unlike any previous confrontation. Shigaraki deployed quirk after quirk, strength enhancement, speed boosting, hardening, even flame generation similar to Endeavor's. Each ability used with tactical precision rather than the uncontrolled rage that had characterized his earlier fighting style. Izuku matched him technique for technique. When Shigaraki used hardening, Izuku countered with armament haki. When the villain generated flames, Izuku responded with controlled Bolo Breath. When Shigaraki deployed a sound-based attack similar to Present Mike's quirk, Izuku simply roared louder, his draconic vocal capacity overwhelming the artificial enhancement. "You've collected impressive tools," Izuku observed after several minutes of intensive combat that had reduced much of the chamber to rubble. "But they're just that, collections. Borrowed power. And yours isn't?" Shigaraki countered, activating a healing quirk to repair damage from Izuku's last Kanabo strike. "Your dragon abilities, these haki techniques, they're not originally yours either. You're just as much a vessel as I am." The accusation struck closer to home than Izuku would admit. His powers, his techniques, even the names he called them, all came from memories and instincts not originally his own. For a moment, doubt flickered across his face. Shigaraki, sensing vulnerability, pressed his advantage. "You think you're so different from me? We're both inheritors, both carrying someone else's legacy." He launched forward with renewed aggression. "The difference is, I embrace it. I am All for One's chosen successor." Izuku blocked the attack, but something had changed in his demeanor. His golden eyes grew distant, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then, clarity returned with crystalline sharpness. "No," he stated with absolute conviction. "You're wrong. My power isn't borrowed. It's awakened. The dragon was always within me, dormant until needed." He pushed Shigaraki back with a surge of strength. "I don't serve someone else's purpose. I am the purpose itself." With renewed focus, Izuku began a systematic counteroffensive. Each strike now carried not just physical force, but intent, the channeled will of Conqueror's haki combined with draconic might. Thunder Bagua, Conqueror's Edition. The enhanced technique struck Shigaraki with such force that the villain's hardening quirk shattered like glass. He flew backward, crashing through equipment and into the chamber wall. Blood trickled from his mouth as he struggled to his feet. "How?" he began before Izuku was upon him again. "Raime Hake!" Lightning-infused strikes rained down, each targeting a specific point where Izuku's observation haki detected quirk energy concentrations. Shigaraki screamed as the attacks disrupted the delicate balance of his multiple quirks, causing them to fluctuate wildly. "Stop!" the villain roared, desperation entering his voice. "You don't understand what you're doing. These quirks are unstable if you disrupt them too much. They'll destroy you from within," Izuku finished, continuing his methodical assault. Borrowed power turning against its unworthy vessel. Shigaraki's body began to convulse as competing quirks activated and deactivated chaotically. In a final desperate move, he activated all his enhancement quirks simultaneously, channeling them into a single, devastating attack. "Die! Dragon!" The combined force of multiple offensive quirks erupted toward Izuku in a beam of destructive energy. Rather than dodging, Izuku met it head-on, inhaling deeply as his chest glowed with blue energy. Bolo Breath, Emperor's Flame. The blue fire that erupted from his mouth wasn't the focused beam of previous uses, but a wide, all-consuming conflagration. Where it met Shigaraki's attack, the villain's energy dissipated like fog before a hurricane. The Emperor's Flame continued forward, engulfing Shigaraki completely. When the flames subsided, the villain remained standing, but barely. His body, partially melted and grotesquely distorted by competing quirk reactions, trembled with failing strength. "Still, incredibly," he laughed. "You think this ends with me?" he gasped, blood bubbling from his lips. "My master, prepared for everything, even this." His remaining hand reached for a device partially embedded in his chest. "If I die, I'm taking you with me." Before he could activate whatever failsafe All for One had installed, Izuku moved with blinding speed. His kanabo, coated with the maximum concentration of both armament and Conqueror's haki, struck with precision. Thunder Bagua, Divine Punishment. The impact connected with Shigaraki's head. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. The villain's eyes widening in final realization, Izuku's golden gaze unflinching. Then, it was over. Shigaraki's body collapsed, the multiple quirks within him destabilizing completely in death. His form began to disintegrate, not from his decay quirk, but from the fundamental incompatibility of the powers forced into his unready vessel. Izuku stood over the remains, his expression somber but satisfied. Shigaraki Tamura, self-proclaimed successor of All for One, eliminated. As the facility crumbled around him, systems failing and secondary explosions beginning, Izuku extended his observation haki once more. The remaining League members were either fleeing or already captured by the task force teams that had breached the perimeter. But something else caught his attention. A presence, or rather the echo of a presence, emanating from a secured room adjacent to the main chamber. Following this sensation, Izuku found a communication setup unlike anything he'd seen before. Multiple screens, specialized equipment, and at the center, a device that pulsed with quirk energy. As he approached, one screen activated automatically. The face that appeared belonged to an older man, featureless except for a mouth and prominent scars where eyes should have been. All for One. Midoriya Izuku. The villain's smooth voice emerged from the speakers. The dragon of UA. The one who devoured my high-end Nomu. The one who just killed my successor. He smiled, the expression devoid of any warmth. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Izuku studied the screen, his observation haki detecting the quirk signatures embedded in the communication system itself. This wasn't just a recording or a standard video call. All for One had integrated quirk technology that allowed him to observe and interact remotely. You're not here, Izuku stated. Just another borrowed presence. Another fake. Perceptive, All for One acknowledged. My body remains secured in Tartarus, but my awareness extends far beyond physical limitations. His smile widened. Just as yours does, in your own way. We're not so different, you and I. Everyone keeps saying that, Izuku noted dryly. It wasn't convincing from Shigaraki either. All for One laughed, the sound unnervingly pleasant. Of course not. Tamura was a work in progress. Unfinished. You, however, you're something else entirely, aren't you? Not just a quirk user. Something more primal, more complete. Izuku remained silent, allowing the villain to continue. I've lived for generations, young dragon. Seen quirks evolve from simple mutations to the complex abilities of today. But you're different. Your power doesn't follow the normal patterns of quirk development. All for One leaned closer to whatever camera captured his image. You have something older, something from before quirks themselves. This assessment, uncomfortably accurate, caused Izuku's eyes to narrow. You know nothing about me. I know enough. All for One countered smoothly. I know you've discovered abilities beyond quirks, this haki that my instruments detect but cannot analyze. I know you transform into a dragon not because of genetic quirk expression, but because your very essence demands it. And I know, his voice dropped to an almost intimate tone, that you hear voices from another world, another life, another you. The accuracy of these observations sent a chill through Izuku's spine. How could All for One possibly know about the memories, the instincts, the knowledge that came to him from elsewhere? Don't look so surprised, the villain continued. I've existed long enough to recognize patterns. History doesn't just repeat, it echoes across realities. Power calls to power. His scarred face grew serious. What I offer you now is not an alliance, but recognition. Acknowledgement from one absolute force to another. And what do you want in return? Izuku asked, already knowing the answer. Nothing immediate. Just the understanding that our confrontation, when it comes, will be worthy. All for One's smile returned. For now, enjoy your victory over Tamura. He served his purpose as a developmental stage. The real game is just beginning. Izuku had heard enough. Coating his fist with armament haki, he smashed the communication device. The screen flickered, but All for One's voice continued from secondary speakers. You can destroy the equipment, but not the connection between us. We are both beyond ordinary limitations, Midoriya Izuku, both transcendent in our own ways. The voice began to fade as systems failed. I'll be waiting in Tartarus, when you're ready for a true test of what it means to be the strongest creature. As the villain's presence disappeared completely, Izuku stood amid the failing technology, processing the encounter. All for One had seen through him, recognized aspects of his nature that even Izuku himself was still coming to understand. The villain's insights were disturbing precisely because they contained elements of truth. The facility's instability increased, forcing Izuku to depart. Emerging into daylight, he found the task force securing the perimeter and processing captured League members. Ryukyu approached him immediately. "Midoriya, we lost communication with you after the breach. What happened inside?" Izuku's golden eyes met hers directly. "Shigaraki is dead. The League is finished." Hawks, overhearing this declaration, whistled softly. "Dead, dead, not captured dead or escaped dead." "Eliminated," Izuku confirmed. "Completely." The implications of this statement registered across the gathered heroes. While their mission had always been to stop the League, the unspoken protocol was capture rather than killing. Izuku had crossed a line that Hero Society maintained, however tenuously. Endeavor approached, his flame beard crackling with intensity. "You took that decision upon yourself, without consultation or authorization?" "Yes," Izuku replied simply. "He was too dangerous to capture." His body contained multiple quirks in an unstable configuration. Attempting to contain him would have risked more lives. Before Endeavor could respond, Ryukyu intervened. "We'll discuss the tactical decisions later. For now, we need to complete the operation and secure any intelligence before this place completely collapses." As the heroes returned to their tasks, All Might approached Izuku privately. "Young Midoriya, what aren't you telling us? I know that look." Izuku considered how much to reveal. Finally, he decided on the truth, at least partially. All for One contacted me through a remote system. He was expecting this outcome. Shigaraki was apparently just a phase in some larger plan. All Might's permanent smile disappeared completely. "What did he say?" "That we're connected somehow, that he recognizes what I am." Izuku's expression hardened, "and that he's waiting for me in Tartarus." The former symbol of peace looked genuinely alarmed. "Tartarus is the most secure facility on the planet. Even thinking about approaching All for One there would be..." "Inevitable," Izuku interrupted. "He's right about one thing. Our confrontation is coming. The strongest creature versus the man who would collect all quirks." His golden eyes gleamed with predatory focus. Only one apex predator can exist in a territory. The League's defeat and Shigaraki's death marked a turning point not just in Izuku's hunt, but in how Hero Society viewed him. Official reports classified the operation as successful with complications, carefully avoiding direct mention of Shigaraki's fate. Unofficially, however, word spread quickly. Media coverage dubbed Izuku the Dragon Enforcer, neither hero nor villain, but something new. Someone who operated by different rules, with different standards. Public opinion divided sharply between those who feared his methods and those who welcomed a more definitive approach to villain threats. Government agencies, already uneasy about his power level, convened special committees to discuss containment protocols should they ever become necessary. These discussions remained classified, but Izuku's observation haki, growing more sensitive by the day, detected the increased attention. Through it all, he continued his evolution. The confrontation with Shigaraki had pushed his abilities further, revealing new applications and combinations. His hybrid form now maintained perfect stability even during intense combat. His haki techniques had refined to the point where he could affect targets with surgical precision rather than broad application. Most significantly, his understanding of his own nature had crystallized. The memories and knowledge that filtered through from Kaido weren't random or imposed. They were awakened, part of his essential self revealed rather than added. 3 weeks after Shigaraki's defeat, as Hero Society adjusted to a post-League reality, Izuku received an unexpected visitor at his private training facility. "Bakugo," he acknowledged as the explosive boy entered. "You're supposed to be at UA." Bakugo scowled, though the expression lacked its former hostility. "Like anyone could stop me when I decided to come. Besides, I have official permission." "Kind of." Izuku raised an eyebrow, questioningly. "All Might sent me," Bakugo explained reluctantly. "Said someone needed to talk to you who wasn't afraid to say exactly what needs saying. Apparently, I qualified." Despite himself, Izuku smiled slightly. "And what needs saying, Bakugo?" The explosive boy studied him for a moment, red eyes narrowed in assessment. "You've changed. Not just stronger. Different. Ever since you ate that Nomu, you've been evolving into something else." "Yes," Izuku agreed simply. "The teachers are worried. The government is terrified. Even All Might doesn't know what to make of you anymore." Bakugo approached, stopping at what he clearly considered a safe distance. So I'm here to ask directly, what the hell are you becoming, Deku? The childhood nickname, once a source of conflict between them, now sounded almost like a genuine inquiry rather than an insult. Izuku considered the question seriously. I'm becoming what I always was, he finally answered. The memories, the techniques, the haki, they're all part of something older than quirks, something fundamental. His golden eyes met Bakugo's red ones directly. I am the strongest creature, not just in power, but in nature. Bakugo absorbed this, his expression unusually thoughtful. And what does that mean for everyone else? For society? Are you still planning to be a hero? Hero, Izuku repeated, testing the word. No, that title belongs to people like All Might, like you, eventually. He rose to his full, imposing height. I'm something else, something this world needs just as much. Which is the absolute, the final arbiter, the one who establishes and maintains the natural order. Izuku's voice deepened slightly as scales shimmered across his neck. The strongest creature exists to remind both heroes and villains that there are forces beyond human systems, beyond laws and ideologies. Bakugo's brow furrowed. That sounds dangerously close to appointing yourself judge, jury, and executioner. Nature itself is judge, jury, and executioner, Izuku countered. I simply embody its principles. The strong protect what's valuable. The weak are protected if worthy, eliminated if threatening. For several moments, Bakugo was silent, processing this worldview. Finally, he spoke again. You're going after All for One next, aren't you? In Tartarus. Izuku nodded once. He's the last true threat, the final predator challenging my territory. Tartarus is impenetrable, the most secure facility ever built. You'd have to go through the entire hero system, the government, everyone. Bakugo's voice rose with frustration. It would make you an enemy of society itself. Perhaps, Izuku acknowledged. Or perhaps society will recognize the necessity. All for One has escaped or manipulated every system created to contain him. Conventional methods have failed repeatedly. And you think you're the solution? Just walk in and kill him? Yes. The simple certainty in Izuku's voice silenced further argument. Bakugo ran a hand through his spiky hair in frustration. Damn it, Deku. You're really committed to this beyond hero thing, aren't you? He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Just remember something. Even the strongest creature has something to protect, something that matters beyond strength itself. After Bakugo departed, Izuku considered his words thoughtfully. The explosive boy had grown, his perspective maturing beyond simple competition and aggression. In his own way, he had become worthy of respect, perhaps even worthy of being considered part of Izuku's territory, those he deemed valuable enough to protect. That night, as he meditated on his next steps, Izuku felt his consciousness expanding, his observation haki reaching unprecedented ranges. He could sense presences across the entire city, distinguish individual emotions and intentions with perfect clarity. And far in the distance, beyond normal perception, he detected something else, a presence unlike any other. Ancient, powerful, cunning. All for One, even confined in Tartarus, exuded an aura that Izuku's enhanced senses could now perceive. Their confrontation wasn't just inevitable, it was imminent, the final test of what it meant to be the strongest creature of history. Planning an approach to Tartarus presented challenges beyond anything Izuku had previously faced. The facility, built to contain the most dangerous villains in history, incorporated every security measure human ingenuity could devise. Physical barriers, quirk nullification technology, biometric systems, and constant surveillance. More significantly, it represented the full authority of hero society and government power. Attempting to breach it, even with the goal of permanently eliminating All for One, would position Izuku in direct opposition to the systems he had nominally served. After considering various approaches, he determined that stealth and deception would ultimately prove futile. All for One would be expecting him, monitoring for his arrival through whatever means the ancient villain had established. Additionally, any covert approach would be interpreted as hostile by authorities, potentially resulting in confrontations with heroes he had no desire to harm. The direct approach, while seemingly more difficult, offered certain advantages. Transparency would force the system to either accommodate his purpose or openly oppose it, bringing the underlying philosophical conflict to its inevitable resolution. 2 days after his conversation with Bakugo, Izuku formally requested a meeting with the Tartarus Security Council, the interagency committee responsible for the facility's protocols. His request, delivered through official task force channels, was simple and direct. Authorized access to All for One's containment cell. The response was predictably negative. His request was denied, accompanied by a formal statement reiterating that All for One's containment protocols allowed no exceptions beyond specifically credentialed medical and security personnel. Undeterred, Izuku elevated his request to the Hero Public Safety Commission itself, the highest authority in hero regulation. Again, denial came swiftly, this time with an addendum suggesting that his unusual interest in All for One was itself cause for concern. All the while, Izuku sensed the increasing nervousness within official channels. Surveillance on his movements intensified. Special response teams were placed on alert. Contingency plans, long established but never implemented, were reviewed and updated. They feared him, these architects of systems and protocols. Feared what he represented, power beyond their control, operating according to principles older than their institutions. After exhausting official channels, Izuku took his case directly to the public. In a carefully orchestrated interview with a major news network, he laid out his position with characteristic directness. All for One has manipulated hero society for generations, he stated, golden eyes fixed on the camera. Even imprisoned, his influence continues. Shigaraki was merely one vessel. There will be others. The threat remains as long as he exists. Are you suggesting that execution would be appropriate? The interviewer asked, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. I'm stating that permanent elimination is necessary, Izuku clarified. Not as punishment, but as natural consequence. Predators that threaten the territory must be removed. But our justice system doesn't work that way, the interviewer protested. We have laws, procedures, rights. Human constructs, Izuku interrupted, valuable for maintaining order among humans. But All for One is no longer human in any meaningful sense. He exists as a concentration of stolen power, accumulated over generations. He represents an existential threat beyond conventional frameworks. The interview, broadcast nationwide, polarized public opinion even further. Some argued that Izuku represented a dangerous vigilante mentality that threatened democratic principles. Others suggested that exceptional threats might indeed require exceptional responses beyond traditional systems. Through it all, Izuku continued his preparations. His training intensified, focusing particularly on the combination of hockey techniques with his draconic abilities. He developed new applications specifically designed to counter All for One's accumulated quirks, based on historical records of the villain's capabilities. Most significantly, he refined his control over Conqueror's Haki to unprecedented levels. Rather than the broad-spectrum domination it typically represented, he could now focus it with surgical precision, targeting specific aspects of an opponent's consciousness or will. Against someone with multiple quirks, this capability might prove decisive. 1 week after his public declaration, as debate continued in political and hero circles, Izuku received an unexpected communication. The Tartarus Security Council, reconvening an emergency session, had approved a single supervised visit to All for One's containment cell. The approval came with extensive conditions. Comprehensive quirk suppression measures would remain active. Multiple high-ranking heroes would be present as observers. The interaction would be limited to verbal exchange only, with physical barriers maintained, and Izuku would submit to temporary quirk-dampening restraints during the visit. To the council's surprise, he accepted all conditions without argument. The day of the visit arrived with palpable tension throughout hero society. Tartarus, normally operating in deliberate obscurity, found itself the focus of intense speculation. Additional security measures were implemented, including the positioning of multiple top 10 heroes in strategic locations throughout the facility. Izuku arrived precisely at the designated time, accompanied by Ryukyu as his official escort. His kanabo had been left behind, a concession to facility protocols that prohibited weapons of any kind. He wore simple clothing rather than his usual combat attire, projecting an image of compliance. As they passed through the first of many security checkpoints, Ryukyu spoke quietly. Whatever you're planning, Izuku, consider the consequences carefully. This facility represents the foundation of our justice system. Challenging it challenges everything heroes stand for. Izuku glanced at his cousin, noting the genuine concern in her expression. Some foundations need challenging to remain strong, he replied. Systems that cannot adapt become obsolete. Nature teaches this. The processing continued. Biometric scans, quirk analysis, application of specialized restraints designed to limit his transformation capabilities. Izuku submitted to each procedure without resistance, his golden eyes observing everything with predatory patience. Finally, they reached the central containment area, a specialized section reserved for the single most dangerous prisoner ever captured. All for One's cell represented the pinnacle of containment technology, multiple redundant barriers, constant quirk suppression fields, and monitoring systems that tracked every biological function. A viewing room had been prepared, separated from the actual cell by reinforced, transparent materials designed to withstand even the most powerful quirks. Within this room waited the observers, All Might, still serving as the symbolic face of hero society despite his diminished power, Endeavor, the current #1 hero, and representatives from both the Hero Commission and government security agencies. All Might approached as Izuku entered. "Young Midoriya," he greeted, his permanent smile strained with concern. "I hope you understand the exceptional nature of this arrangement. Many argued against allowing any contact whatsoever." "I understand," Izuku acknowledged, "and I appreciate your support in making this happen." The former symbol of peace seemed surprised by this assumption. "What makes you think I supported it?" A slight smile touched Izuku's lips. "Your presence here. You could have refused to participate, registered formal objection. Instead, you came because despite your misgivings, you recognized the necessity of confronting All for One directly." Before All Might could respond, a security officer announced, "Prisoner viewing will commence in 30 seconds. All personnel maintain positions." The transparent barrier before them illuminated gradually, revealing the containment cell beyond. At its center, secured to a specialized support system, sat All for One. The villain's appearance matched his voice from the remote communication, an older man with prominent scars where eyes should have been, medical equipment integrated into his body, restraints limiting every movement. Despite these restrictions, an undeniable aura of menace emanated from him, a presence that Izuku's observation haki detected as both ancient and calculating. "Ah!" All for One spoke, his voice transmitted through carefully filtered speakers. "I sense new visitors. The Dragon of UA has finally come to call." He turned his scarred face toward the barrier with unsettling accuracy despite his blindness. "And you've brought quite the entourage. All Might, Endeavor, even representatives from our esteemed government. I'm flattered by the attention." Izuku stepped closer to the barrier, studying his ultimate opponent with more than just physical senses. Through his haki, he perceived the complex energy signatures of multiple quirks dormant within All for One's body. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, and accumulated over generations. "You've been expecting me?" Izuku stated. All for One smiled, the expression unnervingly pleasant on his ruined face. "Of course. Ever since you consumed my high-end Nomu, I've been following your evolution with great interest. The power you absorbed that day accelerated something already happening within you." He tilted his head slightly. "Tell me, do you understand yet what you truly are?" "Better than you imagine," Izuku replied evenly. "I wonder." All for One's smile widened. "You call yourself the strongest creature, echoing memories from another existence. But have you considered why those memories found you specifically? Why, of all possible vessels in this world, the essence of Kaido awakened in you?" The room fell completely silent at this statement. Even the security personnel, trained to maintain professional detachment, exchanged glances of confusion and concern. Izuku's golden eyes narrowed. "You know the name." "I know many things most have forgotten," All for One replied. "When you've lived as long as I have, patterns become evident. History doesn't just repeat, it resonates across boundaries most never perceive." He leaned forward slightly. "There have always been individuals who transcend ordinary limitations, people who carry echoes from elsewhere, who manifest powers beyond the conventional understanding of their era." "Like yourself," Izuku observed. "Indeed. Though my transcendence took a different path, the accumulation and synthesis of power rather than the awakening of something primal." All for One's scarred face grew serious. But enough philosophy. You didn't come here for a theoretical discussion about the nature of consciousness. You came to kill me. The blunt statement caused immediate tension among the observers. Security personnel moved hands to weapons. Heroes shifted into more alert postures. Izuku, however, remained perfectly calm. Yes. Midoriya? Endeavor snapped. That kind of statement violates every condition of this visit. All for One laughed softly. Always so literal, these heroes, as if intentions can be hidden behind diplomatic phrasing. He returned his attention to Izuku. The real question isn't whether you came to kill me, but whether you can. This facility represents the pinnacle of human containment technology. Even if you somehow overcame every security measure, disabled every hero present, and breached this cell, could you truly end me? Yes, Izuku stated with absolute certainty. Interesting confidence, All for One mused. Based on what, I wonder? Your draconic powers? Impressive, certainly, but I've faced transformation quirks before. Your physical strength? Substantial, but I've absorbed and countered stronger. Perhaps these hockey abilities you've manifested? He smiled again. Ah, there, a reaction. Subtle, but I detected it. Izuku hadn't consciously responded, but realized that All for One possessed sensory abilities beyond normal perception, likely quirks specifically designed to compensate for his blindness. You believe your haki, especially Conqueror's haki, provides the key to permanently defeating me, All for One continued. A reasonable theory. It exists outside the quirk framework I've mastered, represents a fundamentally different energy system. His smile turned challenging. But theories require testing, don't they? Without warning, the atmosphere in the room changed. An invisible pressure emanated from All for One, similar to Conqueror's haki, but fundamentally different. Colder, more mechanical, lacking the primal quality of Izuku's power. Surprised? The villain asked as security alarms began blaring. You didn't think I'd remain ignorant of such an interesting ability, did you? I've been studying you through various means, analyzing, adapting. The restraints around his body began to strain. Not perfect replication, of course, more of an approximation, but effective enough for demonstration purposes. Chaos erupted in the viewing room. Guards collapsed unconscious under the pressure. Even the hero observers staggered, fighting to remain conscious. Only All Might, through sheer force of will, and Izuku, naturally immune to such influence, remained fully functional. Midoriya! All Might called out. We need to evacuate. Something's wrong with the containment systems. Indeed, the specialized fields designed to suppress All for One's quirks were fluctuating, displaying error messages across monitoring screens. The villain's restraints began to fail, one system after another shutting down in cascading failure. Did you really think I'd remain truly contained? All for One asked conversationally, as if discussing weather rather than a catastrophic security breach. Tartarus has held my body, yes, but my influence extends far beyond physical limitations. Loyal agents in key positions, dormant quirks activated remotely, contingencies prepared over decades. Izuku assessed the rapidly deteriorating situation with predatory clarity. This wasn't an unexpected development. It was precisely the scenario he had anticipated. All for One, regardless of physical confinement, represented a continuous threat that conventional systems could never truly neutralize. All Might, he said calmly, evacuate everyone, now. The former symbol of peace hesitated, torn between duty and recognition of necessity. Young Midoriya, whatever you're planning, is exactly what needs to happen, Izuku interrupted. You know this. You've always known conventional methods would ultimately fail against him. As if confirming this assessment, the containment cell's primary barrier began to crack, hairline fractures spreading across its surface as All for One's power continued to build. All Might made his decision. Everyone out! Emergency evacuation protocol. He turned back to Izuku as security personnel and other observers rushed toward exits. I'll stay. We'll face him together. No, Izuku stated firmly. Your power is fading. You'd only become a target, a distraction. His golden eyes met All Might's directly. This is my hunt, my purpose. After a moment of internal struggle, All Might nodded once. Be careful, young Midoriya. He's unlike any opponent you faced. As All Might joined the evacuation, Izuku turned his full attention to All for One. The villain had risen from his support system, restraints falling away as multiple quirks activated simultaneously. His body, atrophied from long confinement, began reconstructing itself, muscle mass increasing, damaged tissues regenerating, even his scarred face partially reforming. "Just you and me, then," All for One observed as the last observers departed. "How appropriate." The containment barrier shattered completely, quirk suppression systems failing throughout the facility. Emergency protocols activated, sealing the containment section from the rest of Tartarus to prevent wider breach. Izuku removed the quirk-dampening restraints that had been placed on him, discarding them casually. "You engineered this confrontation," he noted, "allowed me access knowing it would trigger your escape plan." Of course. All for One stepped through the ruined barrier, his body continuing to transform as dormant quirks awakened. Why waste resources breaking out when I could simply wait for the perfect opportunity? Your arrival provided both catalyst and challenge. He spread his arms, now fully regenerated and pulsing with power. The strongest creature versus All for One, a fitting test for both of us. Without further preamble, the villain attacked. Multiple quirks activated simultaneously: strength enhancement, speed boosting, impact generation, even elemental abilities including fire and electricity. The combination created an assault beyond anything a normal opponent could possibly counter. Izuku, however, was far from normal. His observation haki tracked every aspect of the attack, predicting movements and combinations before they fully manifested. His body partially transformed, draconic scales emerging to counter elemental damage, while his reflexes, already superhuman, accelerated further. When All for One's enhanced fist connected with Izuku's chest, the impact would have killed most opponents instantly. Izuku merely slid backward slightly, his armament haki dispersing the force. "Impressive," the villain acknowledged, "but merely defensive. Let's see your offense." Izuku obliged. Moving with speed that belied his size, he closed the distance between them. Without his kanabo, he relied on natural weapons, transformed limbs, tail strikes, and precise applications of haki-enhanced blows. Thunder Bagua, Fist Edition. His arm, coated with visible black armament haki, struck with the same devastating force as his signature weapon technique. All for One attempted to block with multiple quirk barriers, but the haki-enhanced strike penetrated them all, connecting solidly with the villain's chest. All for One flew backward, crashing through multiple walls of the containment facility. The impact would have incapacitated most opponents permanently. The ancient villain, however, emerged from the rubble laughing. "Magnificent," he exclaimed, his body already regenerating damage. "Such pure, fundamental power. Not the artificial accumulation I've mastered, but something elemental." The battle escalated rapidly. All for One deployed quirk after quirk, some familiar from historical records, others completely unknown. Air cannons, gravity manipulation, energy projection, even warping abilities similar to Kurogiri's. Izuku countered each with increasingly refined applications of his combined draconic and haki abilities. When All for One created gravity wells to immobilize him, Izuku generated flame clouds beneath his feet, neutralizing the effect. When the villain launched air cannon attacks, Izuku responded with precisely controlled Bolo Breath that dispersed the pressure waves. "You've prepared well," All for One observed after several minutes of intense combat that had reduced much of the containment section to rubble. "Studied my known capabilities, developed specific counters." "Yes," Izuku acknowledged, scales gleaming as he maintained his hybrid form. "But preparation isn't why I'll win." "Oh?" The villain's regenerated face showed genuine curiosity. "Enlighten me." "You collect power," Izuku explained, circling his opponent with predatory focus. "Accumulate abilities, synthesize combinations, impressive but fundamentally limited." "Limited?" All for One laughed. "I possess hundreds of quirks, each carefully selected and integrated. What limitation could possibly—" "You remain human," Izuku interrupted. "Enhanced, extended, evolved, but still fundamentally human in nature and perspective. I am not." With those words, Izuku began his transformation, not to the hybrid form he'd maintained throughout the battle, but to his complete dragon manifestation. His body expanded dramatically, scales covering every surface as his form elongated into the massive Azure Dragon that had devoured High End. The containment section, despite its reinforced construction, could barely contain his full size. Walls cracked as his serpentine body coiled through the space. The ceiling partially collapsed as his horns scraped against it. his golden eyes now proportionally larger, fixed on All for One with predatory intensity. The difference between us, his draconic voice boomed, is not accumulated power, but essential nature. All for One, displaying remarkable composure despite facing a creature that dwarfed him completely, activated what appeared to be size enhancement quirks of his own. His body grew to perhaps 3 times normal human dimensions. Impressive by ordinary standards, but still minuscule compared to Izuku's dragon form. Nature can be overcome, the villain stated, combining multiple offensive quirks into a concentrated energy beam aimed directly at Izuku's head. That's the entire purpose of quirks, transcending natural limitations. The attack struck with enough force to vaporize reinforced steel. Izuku's scales absorbed it with minimal damage. His response came not as a physical attack, but as something far more fundamental. Haoshoku Haki, Divine Domain. The advanced application of Conqueror's Haki wasn't just a wave of dominating will, but a complete assertion of absolute authority over the surrounding space. Unlike previous uses that primarily affected consciousness, this manifestation targeted something deeper, the very connection between All for One and his accumulated quirks. The villain staggered, his enhanced body fluctuating as quirk connections destabilized. What? What is this? For the first time, genuine alarm entered his voice. You're not attacking my body or mind, but the quirks themselves. Not the quirks, Izuku corrected, his massive draconic head lowering until his golden eyes were level with All for One. But the connections. The bonds between stolen power and unworthy vessel. Understanding dawned on the villain's face. You're severing my control, disrupting the integration I perfected over generations. Despite this realization, he fought back with remarkable resilience, activating stabilization quirks to counter the disruption. Clever, but not enough. I've prepared for every conceivable attack. Not every attack, Izuku countered. Bolo Breath, Divine Judgment. The blue flame that erupted from his draconic maw wasn't the concentrated beam of previous applications, but something fundamentally different. Less fire than pure energy, a manifestation of will made visible. Where it touched All for One, it didn't burn in the conventional sense, but rather severed connections at a level beyond physical. The villain screamed, not in physical pain, but in something deeper. The quirks he'd accumulated over generations began activating chaotically, beyond his control. His body fluctuated wildly as conflicting abilities tried to manifest simultaneously. No! All for One gasped, fighting to reassert control. These are mine, collected, integrated, mine. Stolen, Izuku corrected. Accumulated without understanding, power without worthiness. The dragon's massive tail swept around, positioning behind All for One as the villain struggled against the disruption of his quirk network. With deliberate precision, Izuku coiled his serpentine body, creating a contained space from which there could be no escape. You asked if I could truly end you, Izuku reminded him. Now you have your answer. All for One, still fighting to stabilize his quirks, laughed desperately. You think this is the end? I've prepared for death itself. Contingencies, vessels, transfers of consciousness. Those methods require intact quirks, Izuku interrupted. Connections you no longer control. With that final statement, Izuku combined all 3 forms of Haki simultaneously. Observation to target precisely, armament to penetrate defenses, and conquerors to sever connections permanently. The technique, never before attempted, manifested as black lightning crackling along his massive draconic form. Divine Execution. Thunder Bagua. The tail strike hit with such precision and force that All for One's body didn't just break, it separated fundamentally. Not just physical destruction, but the severing of connections between the villain's consciousness and the accumulated quirks that had sustained him beyond natural lifespan. For a moment, as these connections failed, the true nature of All for One became visible. Not just an elderly man with powerful abilities, but a consciousness that had extended itself unnaturally through quirk accumulation and integration. A human who had become something else through artificial means rather than natural evolution. Fascinating, the villain whispered as his form began to disintegrate. In the end, you truly were the stronger. The disintegration accelerated, quirks separating from their host and dissipating as their unnatural bonds dissolved. Within moments, where All for One had stood remained only empty space. No body, no residual energy, nothing to regenerate or recover. Izuku maintained his full dragon form for several minutes, ensuring through his observation haki that no trace of All for One's consciousness remained. The villain hadn't merely been defeated or killed in the conventional sense, he had been fundamentally unmade, his extended existence finally returning to natural order. Only when absolute certainty was achieved did Izuku begin reverting to human form. The process, normally instantaneous, took longer this time. The extreme exertion of combining all three haki types at maximum intensity had depleted even his monstrous reserves. When he finally stood in human form amid the devastation of what had been Tartarus's most secure containment section, Izuku felt a sense of completion. The hunt that had defined this phase of his existence had reached its natural conclusion. The apex predator that had threatened his territory had been eliminated completely. Emergency systems throughout the facility continued blaring as he made his way toward the exit. Structural integrity warnings flashed on remaining monitors. The combination of All for One's escape attempt and Izuku's full transformation had compromised critical support systems. Outside the containment section, he found a perimeter of heroes and security personnel positioned defensively, clearly uncertain whether to expect All for One or Izuku to emerge from the ruins. All Might stood at the forefront, his diminished form still projecting determination. Young Midoriya, the former symbol of peace, called as Izuku approached. What happened? We lost all monitoring capabilities when the containment systems failed. Izuku's golden eyes, still glowing with residual energy from his transformation, met All Might's directly. All for One is gone, permanently. The assembled heroes exchanged glances of disbelief and uncertainty. Endeavor stepped forward, flames intensifying around his face. Gone how exactly? Escaped? Captured? Eliminated, Izuku stated simply. Completely. He will never threaten this world again. The implications of this statement registered gradually among those present. All for One, the most dangerous villain in history who had survived generations of heroes' best efforts to permanently defeat him, had finally been removed from existence. All Might studied Izuku's expression, recognizing the absolute certainty behind his words. You did what no one else could, he said quietly. What perhaps no one else should have been able to do. This observation, with its complex mixture of gratitude and concern, captured the sentiment that would soon spread throughout hero society. Izuku Midoriya had accomplished what generations of heroes had failed to achieve, but in doing so had confirmed that he operated according to principles beyond conventional heroism. In the days that followed, as Tartarus underwent emergency repairs and Hero Society processed the implications of All for One's permanent defeat, Izuku withdrew from public view. The intense combination of powers required to eliminate the ancient villain had depleted even his tremendous reserves, necessitating recovery time. More significantly, he recognized that his role had fundamentally changed. With both Shigaraki and All for One eliminated, the organized villain threats that had justified his hunt no longer existed. Society would need to adjust to this new reality, and to the continued presence of someone with his abilities and perspective. 2 weeks after the Tartarus incident, as media speculation about his status reached fever pitch, Izuku granted a single interview. Not to a major network, but to a respected independent journalist known for philosophical depth rather than sensationalism. You've been called many things since your emergence, the journalist began. Hero, villain, vigilante, force of nature. How do you define yourself now, after everything that's happened? Izuku considered the question seriously. I am the strongest creature of history, he stated finally. Not just in power, but in purpose. I exist to maintain natural order, to protect what's valuable, eliminate what threatens, and remind both heroes and villains that systems ultimately answer to nature, not the reverse. Some would call that positioning yourself above the law, the journalist observed, above democratic principles entirely. I don't exist in opposition to human systems, Izuku clarified. Effective laws, just governance, heroic protection, these are valuable constructs that benefit society. I exist alongside them, intervening only when threats emerge that conventional approaches cannot address. Like All for One. Yes, a threat that persisted despite generations of conventional efforts to contain it. Izuku's golden eyes gleamed with certainty. Some predators can only be countered by stronger predators. That's my role. And now, With those threats eliminated, what purpose does the strongest creature serve? A slight smile touched Izuku's lips. Remembrance. The knowledge that beyond human systems, natural law still operates, that absolute strength exists, protecting what's valuable. He leaned forward slightly. I will continue to observe, to protect my territory, this society, these people. Most will never encounter me directly, but those who would threaten what I value will know. The dragon watches. The interview, published globally, established a new understanding of Izuku's position in the world order. Not a conventional hero, bound by professional regulations, nor a vigilante operating against established authority. Rather, a force of nature that existed alongside human systems, intervening only when fundamental threats emerged. Hero society adjusted gradually to this new paradigm. Some pros maintained distance, uncomfortable with the precedent of someone operating beyond conventional structures. Others recognized the practical benefits of having such a force available when truly catastrophic threats emerged. UA itself evolved its curriculum, incorporating philosophical discussions about power, responsibility, and natural order that had previously been absent. All Might, continuing as a teacher despite his diminished strength, often referenced Izuku's development as both warning and inspiration, the extreme example of power requiring equally extreme purpose and restraint. Izuku himself established a new pattern of existence. While maintaining loose affiliation with official hero structures, he operated primarily from what came to be known simply as the territory, a remote area where he could train, meditate, and continue refining his abilities without disruption. Occasionally, when threats emerged that conventional heroes struggled to address, he would appear, his draconic form soaring through skies, his presence alone often sufficient to restore order. More rarely, when truly dangerous villains emerged, he would hunt directly, eliminating those who threatened his defined territory with the same absolute efficiency he had demonstrated against the League and All for One. His classmates from UA went on to become prominent heroes in their own right. Bakugo, eventually taking the name Dynamite, established himself as a top-tier combat specialist. Todoroki created a new agency focused on disaster response, utilizing his dual quirk for both rescue and combat. Uraraka specialized in space-based heroics, her gravity manipulation proving invaluable for orbital operations. All maintained varying degrees of connection with Izuku, recognizing his unique position while pursuing their own paths toward conventional heroism. When truly catastrophic situations emerged, they would sometimes call upon him, not as a fellow hero, but as the absolute force to be deployed when all other options had been exhausted. Years passed, society evolved, new threats emerged and were addressed either by conventional heroes or, when necessary, by the intervention of the strongest creature. Izuku's power continued to develop, his mastery of both draconic abilities and haki reaching levels that seemed to transcend quirk limitations entirely. Through it all, he maintained the fundamental principle that had emerged during his hunt for the League and All for One. The strong protect what's valuable. The weak receive protection if worthy, elimination if threatening. Natural order, maintained not through systems and regulations, but through the absolute authority of the apex predator. In time, legends grew around him. Children told stories of the dragon who appeared when danger threatened, who could level mountains with a swing of his kanabo or calm storms with a gesture. Villains whispered warnings about the golden-eyed predator who hunted those who crossed certain boundaries. Heroes spoke of him with complex respect, acknowledgement of his power and contributions, tempered with philosophical questions about the precedent his existence established. What did it mean for society when absolute power operated according to principles beyond democratic control? What happened when the strongest creature disagreed with conventional authorities? These questions remained largely theoretical. Izuku, true to his nature, concerned himself only with fundamental threats to his defined territory. Day-to-day heroics, political developments, social changes. These he observed but rarely engaged with directly. His existence became a constant in an ever-changing world. Not the symbol of peace that All Might had embodied, with its focus on reassurance and conventional protection. Rather, the strongest creature of history, the living embodiment of natural law that existed beyond human systems, reminding both heroes and villains that some forces answered only to nature itself. And in quiet moments, when he floated among actual clouds in his full dragon form, Izuku sometimes reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. From the child born with horns and unnatural strength, to the student who devoured a Nomu, to the hunter who eliminated the greatest threats his world had known. He had become exactly what he was always meant to be, not by following prescribed paths or meeting external expectations, but by embracing his essential nature. By recognizing that true strength came not from borrowed power or accumulated abilities, but from the fundamental alignment of being and purpose. The strongest creature of history, the absolute predator, the final arbiter of natural order. The dragon who protected what was valuable, eliminated what threatened, and reminded a world of systems and regulations that nature ultimately established the truest laws of all.
Big shout out to the legends keeping this channel alive. First, standing tall on the front lines, our pro heroes, Tyreek Ba and Javon McQuire. You're the steady force holding the line and pushing the story forward. Next, the unshakable symbols of peace, Rowdy Rich, Bionetarius V, King of the Pirates, Crow, Daniel Sharp, Roberto Ramos de Cristina, Dasher Games, Joe Bros, Aiden Schmidt, Mason Edwards, Rayvon Crimson River, Dante Alistar, Fable, Adam Yonkers, Blood Saints, MJ Brown, Omar Cousin, Donna Cafe, Zeph, KC, Hassasin 24, Howie 60, Ignacio, Albert, Carlos Terran, Rafael Turan, Kevin Hall. Each of you stands as a pillar, keeping the dream alive, keeping this channel burning bright. And above all, the hope of the universe, Nuggy Nug Boy, Juan, M. Calver, Major, and Colsey. You are the peak, the guiding stars, the unstoppable energy that powers this entire journey. Without you, none of this would be possible. From the bottom of my heart, thank you all. You are not just supporters. You are the legends rewriting destiny with me. And there you have it, legends. Another earth-shattering chapter in the saga of the strongest creature himself. If this display of overwhelming power got your blood pumping, smash that like button like our dragon hero smashes his enemies. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because when the strongest moves, the whole world shakes, and you don't want to miss a single devastating moment. Drop a comment below and let me know which technique left you speechless. Remember, in a world of heroes and villains, only the strongest survive. This has been your storyteller, and you've just witnessed the power of a true king.